No, enough of that. The Nen Show is cancelled, remember? Just fucking with you. I'm your host, Craftsdwarf, here yet again for the Nen Show, with my co-host, Mathwiz. Say hello, Mathwiz.
We're back to talk about Shounen stuff. We're not just the Magical Girl podcast anymore.
As fun as that discussion was, not till next year, I don't know. Okay, so, before we get into everything, like comments and stuff, because I do have a couple, don't check the description for that poll yet. Oh god, I'm gonna die.
Oh no, we're losing Craftsdwarf.
Yeah, don't check, because you're gonna want to... God, what? Why is my voice killing me all of a sudden?
See, here, I thought you were doing that as like a joke. Like,
No,
don't check the description.
No, I'm actually, like, dying. Now I have to keep it in for context. I can't just cut it out now.
Oh no, I've ruined it.
Mostly because we have changed plans. They know on my server, which was funny when they were guessing what we were reading next. But we're no longer doing the old school block next. Because... I decided it makes more sense to do it chronologically because I was going to do a 90s and 2000s block after the new school, but I'm like, wait, why not just go old school 90s, 2000s, 2010s, which was the new school. But we had another block in there, and so we're moving that one forward because it's kind of important. And the reason I say don't open the poll, I mean you can. I mean I'm a YouTube video, not a cop. But the issue with that is like you want to have as much information as you need before you make the vote. I mean, some of you maybe have already decided. So, what we are reading next, of course, we're reading all of these series, because this block is a little special, little unique, because you are voting between heaven and hell. If you vote heaven, we're reading the works of Togashi. We're reading Yu Yu Hakusho first, and then Hunter x Hunter. Yay! Or, if you don't like us that much... You could vote hell, in which case we will read Hiro Mashima's Rave, or localized as Rave Master, followed by Fairy Tail. Oh, God. So, of course, yes, we are reading all four of these works. So, if Togashi gets voted first, we'll read Yu Yu Hakusho, Hunter x Hunter, Rave, then Fairy Tail. And if Mashima is voted first, we'll be reading Hunter x Hunter last, I kind of want to move this one up because... We are the Nen Show. It doesn't make sense to have not discussed Hunter x Hunter at one point. And also, I really want to see Mathwiz react to Fairy Tail. Do you have any thoughts, like things you want to say regarding what we're reading next, like personal, because I know you've watched.
Well, I know if this would be any incentive, we can kind of get like some, I don't know, the pros and cons of each. Yeah. It seems like Craftsdwarf and I are going to go to war over whether or not Yu Yu Hakusho is good, so if that sounds interesting... I mean, we'll get to it eventually, but there's that. There's also, I don't know, I've never read Fairy Tail or Rave Master, whereas I think Craftsdwarf has read or watched everything that's
I've read Fairy Tail twice. Yes, I actually have read everything that you mentioned it, because I've read Fairy Tail twice, I've read and watched Hunter x Hunter, and I've read Rave and Yu Yu Hakusho once each. Though Yu Yu Hakusho was years ago, so my opinion is, hopefully it changes towards the more positive. Yes. Whereas you've watched Yu Yu Hakusho recently, and you've watched Hunter x Hunter, like, what, 2 or 3 times?
Yeah, so I guess technically I haven't read the manga for any of these 4, but I've seen the anime for Togashi stuff. And
you've read a little bit of the Hunter x Hunter manga after the anime ends, right?
Oh yeah, I did read a little bit after the anime ends. That's correct.
So yeah, and I guess as further possible incentive, I think for Hunter x Hunter is probably going to be a bit different than anything we've discussed so far. Because, Yu Yu Hakusho, we have both gone through it, but we've gone through it in 2 different, ways. So I'm not sure how much that will help or hinder. Like, you might be remembering things that only happened in anime, for example. So if there's a contradiction in our memories from, later on, past where we are in the reading, that might be something to, consider. But, with Fairy Tail and Rave, it's going to be much like this, where Mathwiz doesn't know shit, except for pretty much what I've talked about in my videos, what vaguely you remember from, that was over a year ago. But Hunter x Hunter, honestly, I might even suggest that we both catch up to the manga, not, very many chapters have been released since we stopped, just because, Hunter x Hunter will be interesting because we've both gone through it multiple times, so, unlike with even Naruto, I never actually finished Naruto, So like and Mathwiz had, and we were both like a bit foggy in some of the later stuff because Mathwiz kind of fell off of it. So with Hunter x Hunter, we'll have everything in mind. So hopefully that'll be for a more interesting, because we'll be able to bring in points from later without like anyone who hasn't read Hunter x Hunter will or watched it. They won't really be able to watch it because of spoilers. But hopefully that also makes the discussion better for people who have. So that's I feel like the incentive is going to lean towards Togashi, because I guess with Fairy Tail and Rave, like, I'm very curious as to see how you feel about Fairy Tail having gone through Rave first, because I feel like Fairy Tail was more popular. I think people, went back to Rave, like, including myself, went back to Rave afterwards, so you'll have a different perspective. Though I guess for me personally, like, I also expect to, like, appreciate elements of it more. Like, I know for a fact there were areas I was incorrect on in my previous tirade, so you could say, I'm not a fan of that. I think the tirade is kind of mediocre, personally, now. Like, my standards have changed. I'm just not negative in general. So, not that Fairy Tail doesn't have, like, legitimate problems that I get to bitch about. And, like, there's some weird shit that he does. So, like, but I'm not going to be as, like, livid as I would have been if we did the Nen Show, if we did Fairy Tail first, for example. Like, we were on Naruto. Like, we were really harsh on Naruto. It didn't deserve it. Especially early on.
No, yeah, and, like, a lot of our big points about it we didn't realize until, like, after the discussion. So it's, like... not the best introduction to the Nen Show, but you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, well, I remember hearing that, like, a podcast, if you do a podcast, do 6 episodes first, and then really start the podcast, because, like, in our case, like, I do think, like, especially me, at least, like, how I just, engage with media has changed since doing Naruto and Bleach, and, like, I just, like, how I read, like, if we did those now, then, I feel like what, things I'd say would be different. I'm just more open to, like, because I've been wrong. Like, Sasuke, how did he summon up all this chakra to beat Deidara? That doesn't make any sense. And then I read the next, now it makes sense. I'm an idiot. So it's just like, I try to be more open to the fact that stories, haven't fully read, or that are ongoing, they're not over. So it's silly to get angry about them when, again, they're not actually over. So yeah, go ahead and vote. Vote for heaven. Vote for hell. Again, we'll read all 4 of them anyway. And so that'll be. We will announce which ones we are reading next. Before. This is episode 18, and then episode 20, the last One Piece episode, and then after that will be either Yu Yu Hakusho or Rave. I'm also going to post. I might do that later. But if you want to suggest arc, like, if you want to give us arc listings, like, I think these series are actually more well documented. Like, there's some other stuff, like, I remember, like, looking up stuff, and some older series don't have, like, very well documented arc listings, like the big 3. But these 4 series, maybe not Rave as much, but definitely Fairy Tail and Hunter x Hunter and Yu Yu Hakusho probably. So, but if you want to give, like, please, try to separate them, like, give, like, a raw arc listing of, like, this is where each arc begins and ends, and then if you want to give us a suggestion for the Nen Show, like, I'd rather have them separate, because, like, I can't, like, if you look at the Nen Show, I can't tell where the chapters, like look back to the Jaya episode, Skypiea starts somewhere in that, but if you just look at the numbers, you wouldn't be able to tell exactly what chapter Skypiea starts in. I knew because I had the arc listing, but, it just helps me, because if we need to make a change, like, what if a reading turns out to be more dense, or less dense than, expected, like Bleach, for example. So, so suggesting arc listings, and then suggesting Nen Show episodes, like, go for it, please. That'd be a good help. So yeah, any final thoughts on what we're reading next, or shall we move on to comments?
I don't know. I'm excited to read either of them. So whatever happens.
Yep. And then we will do old school after. Well, what's probably gonna happen is we're gonna read. We're gonna finish either Fairy Tail or Hunter x Hunter, whichever one's the last one. Then we're probably gonna read Boruto. I don't imagine that the current ongoing One Piece arc is over. Will be over by the time we finish, even though it's 4 series. I guess we'll find out though. And then it'll be either way, it'll be the old school block after that. So, and as for what we're reading, we'll find out. Okay, so comments. Did you have any? I'm assuming no. They were pretty good about spoilers. So, but it's also like the first half of the arc, so it's not as complete.
See, I finished my reading at a decent time, so you'd think I would have had the extra time to read the comments, but I'm a failure. So.
Oh no.
I did see the one that was the top comment. Craftsdwarf is now a One Piece character, so that's cool.
Because of my laughs. Yeah, I guess that makes everyone has their unique laugh. So I guess first one real quick to get a bit of a Nen Show meme out of the way. Gazebo asked about the character who exploded in Bleach, and we were like, they're fine. To explain that, in case you didn't watch all of Bleach, that was in the second part of the Arrancar arc, specifically the character of Tosen, who... See, I took the Bleach, like, the no one dies in Bleach meme way too seriously, because it's not really true at all. But I'd heard before before reading it that, like, you know, in Bleach, like, if a character dies, like, quote unquote dies, then there's like they're not dead until they show up again or not, or something like that. And so like a character gets fucking like destroyed, his body explodes, there's like a severed arm in the explosion, and we were like, he might be okay, or I was. I don't, and now we've been memeing that ever since because it was so dumb. So we referenced that last time, so I just wanted to throw that out there. Though I did not read all. It was 3 giant comments. Like, it was too big for the on the entire arc. But Wyatt had mostly some of his personal experience and opinions on Dressrosa. Like, obviously I didn't agree with everything. You know, like we've talked about pacing before. You know, like I definitely can understand people seeing specifically the part like between the toys being turned back into people, and the arrival, like some of that stuff was less happening. And more just, like, I described it as pieces moving into place. Like, so that I understand people being less engaged with, especially if they don't care about the characters, all the, like, and such. But, I personally, like, I was engaged with the whole arc all the way through, even though that was, like, a lower point, so to speak. But everything, like, this whole reading was fucking awesome. So, as we'll get to. But, mostly I found that comment helpful because it helped me, like, this is the perspective of, like, this, like, I've seen these opinions elsewhere before in the fan base, so it just helped me, like, okay, this is what people think of this arc, like, even it's just this person, but, I've seen similar sentiments just scattered around, so, like, especially things about, Rebecca, who we're going to be talking about, a bit, because she's rather contentious, and in particular, Kibichu had pointed out how, like, people make her character out to be, like, a gender issue, like, Oda is sexist somehow, which I disagree with. But I'll talk about that more later. I'm sure you have feelings and thoughts about all this. Do you have opinions, though? Because you have been silent on that.
I mean, I guess in regards to Rebecca...
Go on, Rebecca, yeah?
Yeah, I was going to say, I guess in regards to Rebecca, I don't know, I feel like it's just a case of One Piece isn't exactly like a feminist masterpiece. Like, I think it could be better. I feel like these characters could do more, but... I don't know. Some of the time it's okay. Some of the time it's maybe a little of a head scratcher. But I think I understand the sentiment behind it. Like with Rebecca, her father like wasn't able to protect her before, so it's not that like, oh, she shouldn't do something because she's. Well, I mean, I guess it's kind of like that, but like he feels responsible. Like he should do it because he failed her before. I don't know. It feels like
Kibi's comment framed it as it's a parent-child thing, not necessarily a daughter-father thing. Like. So, like, and I have some very specific observations regarding her, because, like, I definitely feel like I understand why people don't like her, and part of it is, like, she didn't get a fight. Like, she was introduced as being this Colosseum champion, but at the same time, like, she doesn't fight. Like, she was a Colosseum champion because she won using the Colosseum's rules of ring out. Like, she's not a real fighter, so to speak. She doesn't have the will to draw blood. It's her character's a bit weird in that, but that's a while off. So yeah, those were all the comments I had. So getting into the reading, Law and Luffy made it to the palace. Everyone's kind of like, there's a bunch of, like, there's one point after the flashback where Violet, like, overviews where everyone is, more or less, like, because, Bellamy, Doflamingo, Treble are also at the palace, and then there's a bunch of different levels. Oh yeah, there's one moment that kind of gets at what I was talking about earlier, where, like, Doflamingo pisses, Luffy off, and Luffy, like, punches, tries to punch him and hits Bellamy instead, so, which was, kind of a lot of, like, what I was saying last time. Oh, and there was a bit of a callback, where, Doflamingo says, "Hey, Law, do you remember what I taught you? The weak do not have the right to choose how they die," which is what Law told Tashigi back on Punk Hazard. Like,
yeah, that was That was neat.
Yeah, because like Law is, you don't really see it until the flashback, but like, Law and Doflamingo are really similar. And it's interesting. But there was another moment of there was some fighting too. And also Fujitora deciding to not, like, he's no longer fighting the pirates. He's decided to place his bets on Luffy, so to speak, which has some interesting consequences later.
Yeah, I feel like somebody like reading this could misconstrue sort of his actions as like his actions do kind of come off as sort of contradictory over the course of the arc. Like in the last stretch of chapters, he seemed to be siding with Doflamingo for a bit,
but he also seems like a nice guy. But yeah, or go on.
Yeah, but I think it all kind of like ties together well enough that like he's just trying to paint the warlords in a bad light, and he's trying to bring down the inclusion of
doesn't like he doesn't like the warlords.
Pirates.
Well, because we find out that he had got some information about Alabasta from Smoker, driving home the parallels between the two arcs, and he's basically trying to avoid what happened there, where the government covered up their wrongdoings, and but that's a while off. So anyway, we do Doflamingo drops a bit of information, like he talks about his backstory. And he also mentions that, like, he knows something about a crucial treasure in Marijoa, that the existence of which will... What are you... I don't know what it is. But it's... just Oda dropping these little tidbits that are just super interesting.
This is one thing I'm kind of, like, starting to realize, that, like, oh, we really aren't anywhere near the end of One Piece, are we? Because, like, now we're getting to the point where... Before, you would have to, like, hold back because of spoilers, but now it's, like, the stuff actually isn't out yet. So
yeah, so...
now I'm finally catching up to the rest of the world. I'm no longer 20 years behind on One Piece.
Right. Like, that's, there are only, like, 2 or 3 arcs you haven't read yet, depending on what you consider an arc. So yeah. Yeah. And, so anyway, any other thoughts on the stuff before the flashback, or shall we get into the Law? It's basically a Law and Doflamingo flashback, pretty much. But it was good.
I guess this is more for what happens after the flashback, but I'm not a big fan of how this arc is or this stretch of chapters. I'm not a huge fan of like how it all plays out, because we get this flashback, which we're gonna talk about, but like this happens, and it's like, oh, there's a lot of tension behind this Doflamingo Law Luffy fight. Let's just cut away to all the side characters who aren't doing anything interesting.
I mean, yeah, I kind of get that. Like, I was taking some things from some of the fights. Some of them were more but like, I mean, it all kind of pays off in the end with all those side characters, with the whole Luffy alliance thing. But yeah, I gotcha. Like I said, it becomes Bleach.
Yeah,
you aren't a fan of that. So yeah, that makes sense. So anyway, before we get into all those fights, we get it. We kind of saw how Law, he came up to Doflamingo. He's like, I want to destroy everything. He's Law had a shit fucking childhood. Like, holy shit. The whole White Town stuff was rough. With Flevance and the white lead. I was rereading it, and the last stretch of chapters, when Doflamingo shot Law, and Law got it out of his handcuffs and took out the bullets, he's like, oh, he had to use lead bullets. Like, Doflamingo's such a piece of shit. He even mentions it again later, I think, after this flashback, where he's hot lead. So yeah. But there are some interesting parallels, though, with, like, Flevance and Dressrosa. Because both of them sort of, like, became really, like, Dressrosa it was mentioned at the end, it became more wealthy because of Doflamingo's influence. Like, before, for the prior, like, 800 years, it lived in peace, but it was also a poor country, So, like they still had their military and such, but, like, there was no, I guess that's why it never had war, because, like, because they weren't a particularly wealthy country, they never had reason to be attacked, until, so, like, I mean, we'll definitely talk about the pacifism angle, but later, but for now, I also want to point out, like, because, like, part of the Flevance tragedy was because they decided to fight, like, they were quarantined, and they, after they tried to fight back, now, like, it was shit, they were fucked, like, but you could say it was made worse because they chose to fight, and both countries sort of had they got this sudden wealth from, government influence, so to speak, like with the White Lead and Doflamingo, who is a warlord of the sea, and a heavenly dragon. And they both paid a great price for that. So I'm not sure what Oda's trying to say with that specifically, but I thought I noticed it as a similarity between the two countries.
I don't know. The one thing you said about they tried to fight back and that seemed to me. I don't know if I agree with that. They seemed like they weren't quite going anywhere.
They were fucked in the first place, but it's because before it was like a quarantine. It was just an isolated country, and then it became an extermination when they tried to escape and fight back. So you could say it became worse because of that, but that's what it seemed Oda seemed to be going for. So
I suppose I will accept that, I guess.
But yeah, you can also kind of see how, because we see Doflamingo's backstory too, and he was a heavenly dragon who was brought down to the level of humanity, and he he sort of acted the same. He was talking, he was like, why, I want slaves, why are these people walking in my path? He's just kind of a typical heavenly dragon. And then, or as he puts it, he saw heaven and hell by the age of 10. And so both of them, wanted to destroy the world. And so, Doflamingo wanted to raise Law up to be his, right hand, because he saw himself in Law, I suppose. Not that, because, Law wasn't a heavenly dragon, but he was, his family seemed wealthy. He was a doctor. And of course everything went to shit. Oh, what did you think about Corazon? Dolphy's brother.
Are we talking the entire flashback or just so far?
I'm sure in general, because he gets introduced to it, and it's he hates kids, and then we find out he's trying to get the kids out of Doflamingo's organization by scaring him off, which was good. But
I'm not sure how I feel about Doflamingo's and Corazon's dynamic.
Okay.
I guess this kind of, I don't know, I guess I can just bring it up. I know Best Guy ever made his video about Doflamingo's wasted potential, and I was interested to see,
because you
how
watched
I'd feel
it before,
about that.
right?
You'd
watched it back when you first
watched, I think, a bit of it before.
Okay.
I hadn't finished it. But I'd watched a bit of it, and I was like, oh, this goes into some deep One Piece spoilers. I will not do that.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, I kind of agree with his sentiment that I think Doflamingo was mishandled a bit in this arc. I feel because the way it's introduced is him, they're the fallen heavenly dragons. They step down and they're living amongst people, and Doflamingo, he's presented through these circumstances that I think would make it reasonable that he would develop this nihilism against all humans, and I think that also serves as almost a bit of an extension of the racism of Fishman Island. So I was drawing kind of some, I don't know if I'd say parallels between him and Hody, but there were, I don't know, it was a similar enough theme that I thought was being set up here. Because obviously
I never thought about Hody, but go on.
Well, because he was this kid who was born in this. He was a heavenly dragon, so he was born into wealth, and he was privileged. He had all these things, but then he had that taken away. And I would imagine with time, if he hadn't gotten, if people didn't have the stigma against the dragons, or if they had lived away, and I don't know, his father seemed to try to be attempting to humble his family by showing that they're just normal humans, but they never really got that kind of environment because they were met with this hostility. So I don't know, the way Corazon seems to be different from Doflamingo. I could understand one of them being more I don't want to say passive, but more, I could understand how one of them ends up becoming nihilistic while the other one might not, but I don't feel like Oda did enough or gave me enough to show what separated the two, what caused them to develop different mindsets, other than just Doflamingo is evil.
Okay, here's I guess where my disagreement comes from, because Corazon is the younger one, and when they were young, we pretty much only see him in the arms of one of his parents, either on his mother's bed or in his mother's arms. So I got the sense that he was just a bit younger than Doflamingo, because that's the thing. So
Doflamingo had more time to kind of acclimate to the heavenly dragon lifestyle, whereas Corazon,
that's kind of how. Well, because and what really because that's the thing. I think Corazon's kind of a bit of a, like, when he says born evil, like, he's also being kind of a hypocrite for a few reasons, like, because the Don Quixote family is, like, well, because, I have not read the original novel, Don Quixote of, the original Spanish novel that obviously the name comes from, so I don't know exactly, but I do know that the character is, like, insane, and so, like, one recurring thing with with these Don Quixote characters is they're not like the heavenly, like, the father, he's like, oh, we're human, and the other heavenly dragons think of him as insane, because they have this godhood, and he decided to give that up. So with Doflamingo, like, I don't think he's necessarily born evil. I think he's just, like, again, he acclimated to that environment, because that's all, like, his evil actions are just, like, what a normal heavenly dragon is. Like, he wants slaves. He, get out of my path. Like, so I guess, like, you could say he's crazy in regards to the Don Quixote family, but he's also just a normal heavenly dragon. And the reason I say hypocrite is because, like, again, Law is kind of the same. Like, he was also born in, affluence and had that all taken away and hated the world. Yet Corazon thinks Law can change, even though he says Doflamingo is born evil. So, that I guess I don't really agree with Corazon or Rocinante.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. I can kind of understand the reasoning that you gave, because I also didn't fully agree with, like, the way, I guess Corazon was the main one who said that, like, Doflamingo is evil, and I didn't agree with that, and I guess, I don't know if I'd exactly call Corazon, like, the voice of the narrator here, like, he's the moral center of this arc, so,
I can
guess
definitely
that's
understand
reasonable.
Where that perspective comes from. I just disagree with them because, like, and of course Doflamingo is not pure evil. Like, he does, his family. Like, there's things to unpack there, but
I just feel like Oda didn't do. I feel like Oda could have done more to try to unpack that. Like, I feel like there could have been some more moral ambiguity here that wasn't fully realized
for Rocinante, maybe. Yeah, because that would, I guess, make it easier to see, like, that he's probably not correct. Because I think, again, that it's the parallel with Law and Doflamingo that really makes me think he's wrong, because it's like, why does he have hope in Law but not Doflamingo? Like, because I think maybe it is just the blood. Like, he's like, well, why am I so different from my brother? He just, like, he can't rationalize it, so he tries to, like, come up with, oh, he was just born that way. So that's kind of how I saw it. But anyway, moving on. I do like a lot of the little interactions between the Doflamingo family. Like there's, like, a whole montage of them, like, Law training and stuff, and they get into one fight, and, like, or Law and Baby Five are get, like, by this guy with a bounty, and then the next lower down the page, Doflamingo has saved them, and, like, Baby Five's just clinging to his leg, and she's all small and adorable. Also, I just love how, like, in every single panel that Corazon's in, he's either falling on his ass or on fire. Like, I don't know. His clumsiness was fun. Like, earlier he was like, or later on when he's actually talking to Law, he's like, yeah, my clumsiness, it is all an act, and he's, like, on fire, and it's like, he's such a dummy.
Yeah.
Because, and I guess leading up to that, you have Law revealing his true name, which I guess is kind of like it's an understandable, like, translation thing, because I'm pretty sure his name is supposed to be Trafalgar D. Waterloo, as in, like, the Battle of Waterloo, because I think Trafalgar is also, like, Battle of Trafalgar Bay or something. Like, he's a reference to French war, or French battles in, like, the Napoleonic conflicts, I believe. But I don't think we want to call him Trafalgar Lou, so I think Water Law, it's a little awkward, but it sounds cooler, because I I don't think he would have been as popular if we all had to call him Lou. But yeah, he's a D, which also catches Corazon's attention, because he breaks his silence pact and explains some bits to Law, which is important. Did you have any thoughts on that, or shall we move to the popularity poll? Okay, well, because that's super important for later, but, so yeah, for the popularity poll, Law shot up to second place, which is a spot that no non-Straw Hat has ever gotten to.
That's a spot that no one who isn't Zoro has gotten to.
Exactly, yeah, that's exactly, yeah, and Zoro and Sanji both got bumped down, very sad. Sabo also got really high, and Bartolomeo and Bohan, like, there's, like, the least Straw Hats here that like, I think half of them are non-Straw Hats. Law, Ace, Sabo, Bartolomeo, and Boa Hancock. Yeah, that's damn.
I mean, like, all the Straw Hats are still in the top 20, but yeah, they're not quite hanging in there.
Yeah, poor Frankie and Brooke down into 16 and 19. Oh yeah, and I also, okay, this is a weird one because I also noticed it with I think there's another popularity poll after this. Because there's a character called Falafra or Farafa. He's from Alabasta. He's like one of the rebels with Koza, and he's like got like hippo kind of teeth. I mostly point him out because he ranks at 88th place, where Koza himself is 95. And he actually ranks higher on the next one. I think that it's got to be like a meme on 2chan or something where everyone votes for this character who no one gives a fuck about to see how highly they can get him. Because he has like no dialogue, and like, so why is he higher than Koza? It's just so weird. But yeah, popularity poll. So yeah, moving forward, Corazon talks about the D initial, about how the D. So yeah, the D initial that we've gotten like no information on since like Kureha or no Whitebeard, because he said that there's something about like, oh, you're not the one, to Blackbeard, who also has a D. But now we find out that they are the enemies of gods, which is super consistent with Luffy because he was the natural enemy of Eneru way back when, the one who called himself a god. And then of course you have the finale of this arc, which was really cool. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. And it's also kind of interesting how it affected Law too. Because like as he talked about with Sengoku, like he thought the only reason Corazon like paid attention to him was because he was a D, because that's when he opened up about his secret. That's when he started helping, a little bit after that he helped Law try to cure his sickness. Like, so Law took it as like, oh, Corazon wants me to defeat Doflamingo, when really, as we find out, Corazon just wanted Law to live freely. But ironically, like, his actions sort of trapped Law, like, because he believed he had to exert this vengeance on Doflamingo, which sort of which goes into a lot of his actions during the Dressrosa arc. So, yeah. Oh, yeah, speaking of Sengoku, what did you think about his sudden role here? Nothing much, or?
I mean, yeah, he showed up. He talked to some people.
Yep.
Or are you talking about his role in the flashback?
Both. Because he comes back later, too.
I mean, yeah, I guess it was interesting that he had this, he had this connection to Corazon, and then that kind of connected him to Law. But I don't know,
yeah.
like,
well, because he didn't do that much before. Like, this is honestly some of the most important he's been in the series. Just like because Law's a pretty important character this arc, and Sengoku has this connection to him. And also seeing the Corazon go around to all the hospitals trying to get Law cured, and all the doctors are like, oh no, and like, I think the part that actually got me was one of the doctors, he crosses his fingers and then crosses his arms across his chest, which we saw earlier this arc when Bartolomeo did it with his devil fruit, and even says, like, even kids know crossing your fingers is a barrier against harm. I'm just like, fuck you, you piece of shit doctor. Like, I don't know, it made me mad. But yeah, seeing him connect is good.
I mean, yeah, it was cool seeing, because obviously when we first see Kid Law, he's just like stern and stoic, and
he's this edgy boy. Emotions. He wants to destroy the whole world. Yeah.
Yes, and then when like Corazon's trying to help him and taking him to all these hospitals. On one hand, like it speaks to him because he's like, oh, he wants to help me, but at the same time, Law has to like live this pain that he was trying to like ignore over and over and over because nobody will help him. And
right, because that was like the whole thing with the Flevon's flashback, where it's like, oh, if we wait here, the nun was like, hey, if we wait here, we'll achieve salvation, and then everyone got massacred, and so Law no longer believed in anything anymore, and that's challenged when because he also hates the government because they were the ones behind the whole Flevon's White City tragedy, but then because Corazon tried to hide the fact that he was a Marine from Law. But because Law hates the government, but then he's being held. The first person to connect to him after the tragedy was a government guy. So he's like the world isn't as black as he saw it, I suppose. So yeah, that's because Law even says later that Corazon was the one who gave him a heart, and he literally did that because the op fruit is shaped like a heart. But yeah, there's a bunch of scheming shenanigans as everyone's trying to go after the fruit.
I did I don't know if it's really much of a funny panel, but I just when he was going to all the hospitals, Corazon's just like, do I have to kill all of you myself? Because they weren't helping Law.
Yeah, damn you doctors, I'm gonna kill you. Goddamn, what the rude. But Oh yeah, so I get. Oh, did you like the cover page? I think it was for chapter 766, which had
Yes, where I was like Naruto is there, but Nami's just standing in front of him, so you can't see him. I don't know if that would have like violated some sort of like copyright
no,
or
well,
whatever the
because
heck
he
it's
actually
called.
like literally for I think it was Koche Kame's 30th anniversary or maybe 25th, which is the comedy manga. Like he literally showed up as like with like a marine rifle in one panel. I think it was just him being coy, Oda.
Okay.
So, well, because like I actually read an interview where they were talking about because yeah, this chapter was it ran in the same magazine as chapter 700 of Naruto, the last one.
And that was the one that had like the One Piece symbol,
yes,
like
on the graffiti on the
yes.
Naruto statue, right? So it's just cute. And then Nami's got the Konoha symbol on her dress, and Luffy's eating ramen. Like, it's cute. Also surrounding the op fruit, you read the SBS later, right, where it mentions the Diaz's barrels and his son, Diaz Drake.
Oh yeah.
So, right. So okay, because I've been like, because we also saw Drake on the cover page where he captured Caribou, and then we see him after all this arc where he's working with Kaido. So he's basically, I wanted to say, because I've said it earlier, he's the, like, to me, like the second most mysterious character alongside Kuma. Whereas like Kuma, you know, he worked with the revolutionaries, but now he's with the government for some reason. Drake, his dad he looked up to Marines, and then he joined the Marines, but then he left the Marines to join Kaido. And it's like, why? What is going on? Like, there's a story there. Like, obviously, like we saw a bit of it here, you know, with young Drake. He left his father and ended up on a Marine ship and joined and eventually became a rear admiral. But like, I want to see more to his story because it's like they're kind of inverse from each other now. I think about it because like Kuma was, a criminal who became a warlord, a government dog, and then Drake was a government guy who became a pirate. So like, but they're both super mysterious because those actions are so weird. Like, I know there's a story there, and I really want to see the stories for both of them. So, yeah, I'm just throwing that out there because I'm curious. I'm super curious. So anyway, back to the rest of the flashback. Corazon gets the fruit. Law eats it. He goes to try and get Corazon help. He meets a Marine soldier.
He could have gone to anybody, and it had to be Virgo.
The first Corazon. Oh, motherfucker. Oh, man. And, well, now we find out, like, because I remember when Law was about to fight Virgo, and Doflamingo was like, oh, you've got trauma from Virgo in the past, right? And, well, here it is. So, because, yeah, Virgo beat the shit out of both of them.
I do think it is kind of interesting, the way that, I don't know how often it is that a character, like, shows up and, like, is defeated in a story, and then, like, in a later arc, like, only, like, that's when we kind of learn more about them. Like, Virgo, he's already been defeated in the main story, but now we're, like, learning more about him through this flashback, and it's, like, giving him more power even though he's already been defeated, which is interesting.
Yeah, because you're right, because, well, it was kind of similar with Monet last time, where the dwarves or the Tontos, the little people, were talking about how, like, oh, I think this country started, or maybe it was Kairos, but, like, this country started to get weird when that mysterious woman, Monet, appeared in the palace as a secretary. And she in the flashback, she let the Doflamingo family in. So it's like, yeah, it's interesting because they have ties with they've been with the family for a while. So yeah, it is neat. Because you're right, usually when a villain is beaten, they're just out of the story forever. But this is pretty cool, yeah. So yeah, anyway, Doflamingo goes to deal with Corazon. And I like this bit too, because again, Law was such an edgy boy, but then when Corazon, like, he makes him silent so that, Law, nothing he says or does will make noise. And then there's the part where we see him, like, tapping on the treasure chest, and he's like smiling, and it's adorable because he's just having fun with the ability, even though earlier he called it lame. And then Corazon makes his doofy smile face. And then, well, when it really gets me is, like, a little. I think it got me a little bit. Like, I didn't, like, sob, but I think I got a little watery eyed when when Law was like crying silently, and then Korra died, so the noise came out, and I was like, no, you can't do that. Because that's the thing. Is like, because I wouldn't say Dressrosa is like, it's like around my top 5 because it's really fucking good, I think. But like emotionally, it doesn't get me as much. Like I had a couple moments where I was like watery eyed, but not. I never like. I don't think I outright cried. So emotionally, it doesn't hit me as hard as like a bunch of like some of the other arcs have. But I still think it's pretty good. And we have only just begun. But yeah, there's also a moment between Doflamingo and Corazon where Korra explains that he's, goes through his past, or he explains that he's a traitor, pretty much. And, he gave Law's fruit. And Doflamingo, like, because Doflamingo's whole thing is, like, he even says, like, he excuses failure, but it doesn't excuse betrayal. Because, like we saw earlier with Diamante and Treble, he was like, oh yeah, you failed, it's fine. But, he doesn't excuse betrayal because I think in part, maybe in part, I guess to look into his backstory is like, he was taken from his, Marijoa, the place he wanted to be pretty much by, his father, completely outside of his control. And so, I think that instilled his desire to sort of control as much as he can. So, that's why being betrayed is the worst for him because, again, he wants to control. So, even his own brother, like, I don't know, I definitely think that, like, like Doflamingo definitely, obviously didn't want to kill Corazon, but he forced his hand because he was being he wasn't controlled or able to be controlled, so to speak. So I don't know, Dofi's definitely not good, but like I don't know, his family is kind of like some aspects to like there's some more to talk about later, but like his relation to his family is interesting. Because like he demands so much of them, but he also still cares about them. And it's just like it's kind of a unique dynamic because again we don't really see the whole like the villain who cares for their inner circle so much, but or cares for their crew, but like but how it works with Doflamingo is kind of interesting because there's some moments from later I'll talk about, but yeah that's pretty much the end of the flashback.
No, yeah, I did like how in that flashback he like even when there was the suspicion that his brother betrayed him, he's like, well, I really don't want to suspect my own brother, but...
Yeah, when Corazon left, like, he left for 6 months, and then they were also free from the Marines for 6 months, and that's a bit of a coincidence, but he's like, Yeah, Doflamingo is still, like, he wanted to trust his brother, but, that trust turned out to be misplaced, and, like, again, betrayal, so, yeah, I don't know. Doflamingo's a good villain, like, I'm not He might be one of my favorites. Like, if there's a contender, it'd actually be from the next arc. Like, Moria is also really good, but Doflamingo, I think, is great.
Yeah, I still have mixed feelings. I mean, like, I get the stuff with, like, his upbringing. Like, he... I like the dynamic with, like... I mean, obviously I don't like it because it's a very toxic dynamic, but, like, his relationship with his father, like, that makes sense, how that would shape him. And, like, how he was kind of, like... just for basically being who he was, like he was treated negatively from like the outside world. So like it makes sense how he would develop this, like the cynicism he has and how he would come to manipulate people. I just there's bits of it that still I feel like could have been done better.
I don't know, we'll see. There's more to discuss. So anyway, after the flashback, Viola, all the side characters that you don't care about.
Yeah, I mean, Oda has, I don't know, like, his flashbacks are normally placed pretty well. Like, I really liked what he did with, the Wapol thing, because then it's like Luffy delivers this big punch, and it's like, the flat, like, up to that point, Wapol was just kind of like, whoa, who's this guy? He's just funny villain man. But then, like, he has this big flashback, and then it, like, builds up to this one big 2-page spread punch from Luffy, and it's great. But yes, here it's like... Before the flashback, Luffy was just punching a dude, and then after the flashback, he's punching Wapol, the piece of shit who ruined this country. So it's like mid-word, because it's like bull-let between the around the flashback. Yeah, no, that's good. but then like here, it's like, here is this fight that's going on. Like, Law and Doflamingo clearly have history, so let's inform you on these characters, and then let's just cut away.
Yeah. Well, like, I guess the thing, because I kind of compared Dressrosa to Flevance, and there's also, like, Corazon was trying to save Dressrosa. So, like, I guess, there is a link, because, like, the letter that he was going to give to the Marines that ended up in Virgo's hands, would have potentially, like, been an aid to Dressrosa because, I don't know, like, it's only maybe a couple years between the end of the flashback and Doflamingo taking over Dressrosa. So, like, it's possible, like, so, yeah, like, there is a link between there, but, because, like, compared to since you brought up Drum, like, the flashback is Chopper's flashback, and what happens right after the flashback is, Luffy and Chopper versus Wapol's forces. So, like, now we have context into Chopper and Kureha and Wapol, whereas, like, with this, it's like, like, it's not really connected to Dressrosa. Like, there's some parallels, and, again, like, Corazon was trying, like, Law even says that Corazon was trying to save Dressrosa, or someone says, and then it goes into all the people who are trying to save Dressrosa, but it's not as close a link, I suppose. So yeah, it makes sense.
I think it's also interesting, although this time in a more like a good way, how Oda, I don't know if it's flashbacks within flashbacks, but like Oda, the way he kind of like cuts it up, like sometimes like a chapter will end off of one moment and then like another chapter begins with like, oh, here's Doflamingo shooting his father. Like it's another kind of like, I don't know, breaking things up a bit with like different parts of the flashback. Yeah,
that's because like the Law flashback is more or less like linear, but the Doflamingo, like we even see bits of it afterwards. Like later we see Treble, like, because like we see Doflamingo with the gun shooting his dad, but later we see Treble actually giving Doflamingo the gun and his devil fruit. So like it's Doflamingo's like backstory is broken up quite a bit, and some of it he talks about, but like yeah, Oh yeah, but so anyway, after the flashback, Law talks about they talk about Corazon. Law says that like he's there to pull the trigger that Corazon wasn't able to to pull. So like, which is like I said, he's not free. He's being trapped by what he thinks Corazon wanted of him. So that's kind of because some people I guess don't like the fact that Luffy was the one who defeated Law. Or defeated Doflamingo? Luffy defeated Law. That would be weird. But, because, like, yeah, Law has all this context and, backstory history with Doflamingo that Luffy doesn't have. But, I think it's important, and especially for something Luffy says later. Oh, yeah, and Doflamingo just fucking rips off Law's arm. Like, that was fucking brutal.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's usually not something that... I mean, like, I guess we had earlier this arc, the guy cut off his own leg.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I don't know, that's not something Oda usually does. Like, to bring up the Bleach parallel again, like, oh, a character loses their arm. Yeah, that's...
Well, what's also notable about this, it seems like, because he's, cutting, like, it's kind of like he's, like, ripping it off with, like, it doesn't look like a clean cut. So, like, he's using a string, but it's a little rough.
One thing I did like, in this little, like, interaction with Doflamingo and Law, Doflamingo is saying like, oh, if you hadn't screwed up that one day, then all these countless tragedies might never have occurred. And Law is like, so even you consider them to be tragedies. And
yes, that was an interesting line. Though I've seen like other translations, and apparently the line in the anime is different, so I'm kind of curious to see about that. But like, yeah, it was definitely interesting because like, yeah, Doflamingo's like, yeah, that's an interesting line of thought from Law. So yeah. Also, I guess it's a little bit earlier, but I also liked how, like, Doflamingo is, like, legitimately kind of unsettled about the fact that Law was a D. Like, he was, like, panicking a bit. And so, like, he even says it's just a superstition, but he also kind of values that superstition. Like, and I guess that's part of that. Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention because, like, Dressrosa really puts into context a lot of Law's previous actions. Like, why was he at the auction hall? That was connected to Doflamingo. Like, I don't think he was kind of an opportunist, so I don't know exactly why he was here, but, like, it's kind of understandable why he was specifically at the one auction hall that Doflamingo had connections to. I mean, that's, there's got to be a reason for it. It's just we never got an outright answer. Like, he kind of made off with a slave, so, I don't know, maybe he was going to try and use some of his pull with Doflamingo to get, a slave or something, like, some more crewmates, basically, I don't know. But, like, more importantly, why did he save Luffy at the war? Why did he save a D, the enemy of God, at a war? So that's probably the biggest one, I think. So anyway, after that, we get Luffy and Bellamy round 2. What did you think about that?
I mean, not a whole lot happened, but it was cool. Like, they start kind of scuffling, and then like we cut away to a bunch of other fights. Then we come back and Luffy beats Bellamy. It was interesting that Bellamy, like, I don't know, like he has developed a bit in that, you know, he is still like he has the option to not fight Luffy, but he's gonna do it anyway because he's like, well, I'm an idiot, so I might as well just commit to that because, you know, I've gone this far or whatever, and so he wants Luffy to, you know, to beat him in that, and he's gonna die, and that's gonna be his final. He has lived a failed life, and that is the end of him. But that's not what happens. I mean, like
he's so good. Or go on.
I mean, yeah, like he gets defeated, but he doesn't die, and like he has a chance to change. Like he doesn't have to be a failure. He can find something else for himself.
Yes. Right. Well, because you know, before he didn't believe in dreams, and then he found one, and he just wanted to, you know, because he idolized Doflamingo, he wanted to follow him. But then, you know, the little bit of flashback, I kind of was about to mention this last time, but it kind of really explains why Doflamingo fucking hates Bellamy. Because Bellamy he comes from the rich city of Nortis. He hates it because it's a boring old, I want to be a pirate. You know, so he idolized Doflamingo because he was formerly, you know, like wealthy, but then he got, you know, and so, which Doflamingo fucking hates. Like Doflamingo wants nothing, like seems to want nothing more than to, you know, he either get back to Marijo or like have vengeance about the fact that he can no longer be a god, basically. But Bellamy gave that up willingly, so I think, I wonder
so like Doflamingo had it taken away from him out of his control, whereas like Bellamy did it willingly.
Became a pirate because he wanted to, yeah.
So maybe like, Doflamingo kind of envies that like Bellamy had that choice to begin with,
right? Like, because he gave something up willingly, and like, and also I guess I'm wondering if how that factors into his world. Like maybe no, I guess because he believes humans want, you know, blood and stuff, and Bellamy kind of, you know, he became a pirate. But yeah, like, yeah, it's interesting because it explains because Doflamingo does sort of like take a special negative exceptions toward Bellamy. Like he doesn't particularly care about like all his other minions and stuff. Like Gladius tells the soldiers that what became toys, he was like, oh yeah, we'll just change you back afterwards anyway, or oh no, that's right, Sugar got knocked out at the beginning of the stretch of chapters, and they were like, whoa, what would or you were going to change us back, right? And he's like, yeah, we would have after all the fighting. And then in his brain was like, well, we actually would have forgotten you. So it's like, they don't care as much about the small minions and stuff. But again, Doflamingo seems to take special exceptions toward Bellamy. So, and how much he dislikes him. So, yeah, it's a good little thing. But, and yeah, their little fight was good with Luffy because like Bellamy, you know, he's a dreamer now, and he wants to like, you know, have faith in that dream, like no matter, even to the point of, you know, his defeat. And so he's got, you know, he's had his dream broken after finding it, which is like, and it's just, and then, but now he's still around after the arc, so that's good. It was a good moment. So yeah, there's a bunch of other stuff setting up some of the fights. I guess we're just gonna go do the Bleach thing where you just go through each fight. Well, no, we did it with Naruto too, like the Sasuke rescue arc. But yeah, just go through all the fights. So like, were there any of them in general that you had like thoughts on?
I guess we could talk about like the two. I'm pretty sure only two of the fights had mini flashbacks in there, but there's like the Senor Pink Frankie fight, and then there's the Baby 5 one.
Yes.
And like, I don't really understand what their backstory flashbacks added to the arc, other than like, okay, we understand why they are the way they are. But I don't know what it contributes like thematically. So,
okay, like the one with the giant, I don't really have much to say. He punches it out of Mathwiz, and it's cool. But we'll talk about the Sai one, the Sai and Baby versus. It's also like Baby 5, Laoji, Sai, and Don Chinjiao. So with Baby 5, like the thing with like the story in general, like One Piece it leans more towards selfishness than selflessness. Like, you know, and that's important with Doflamingo's family because they're all willing to like offer themselves for Doflamingo, basically. And Baby 5, like she's the most she wanted to be needed, so she's like she desperately wants to be needed, but you know, Sai is kind of like, well, hold on, you know, like Laoji even says like you know, he wants you know, she's useful, like they're all kind of you know, they're all kind of like there to be used by Doflamingo, and Baby 5 in her. Like, because that's the thing is, like, they still kind of, like, look out for her. Like, you know, Buffalo was, like, using her for money, but then, like, she was, like, when we were first introduced to her, she was pissed off that Doflamingo killed her fiance and the town he was from, but like he was just like probably just like trying to use her even more. So like but and Sai kind of like is sort of pushing her, you know, out of that because her selflessness is to the point like she was literally about to just shoot herself because Sai made a joke about it, because she wants to be needed above all else. So yeah, it's kind of pushing her out of like, and she's the only Doflamingo member who doesn't like get captured, so because she's the only one who's able to sort of go beyond that sort of like, because that's the thing, is like everyone's willing to sacrifice themselves for Doflamingo. So like and I think that's also kind of important to Senor Pink, because he had a love with Russian, the woman he loved, but the relationship kind of fell apart because he was part of Doflamingo's crew. Like he was away on a mission, and when his son died, and then you know, he was awkward about telling, like she couldn't contact him because he lied and said he was from a bank when he was actually a pirate, because she hated pirates. And like, so he was like torn between two families, so to speak, the Doflamingo family, you know, and the family he built. And so, but he wasn't able to, like, he wasn't willing to choose one or the other, so to speak. So he lost his family. So it's like he was too tied to Doflamingo to, and yeah, that kind of like, you know, he lost his family for that. So because that's the thing about self-sacrifice, is, you know, if you sacrifice, you're going to lose something. And yeah, these are all characters who dedicate, like, you know, for most of them it's not an issue, but like, yeah, you know, of course Senor Pink would lose everything because he works for Doflamingo, because that's what Doflamingo asks of his family. Or like he wants, like with the Monet, you know, we need Punk Hazard destroyed for all my plans, so, you know, die for me. And she was like, yes. Like that's the thing, they're all willing to do it, even though like if it's avoidable, he won't, like with Giola on the bridge. So she was willing to let Law kill her, but Doflamingo wasn't. So that was a bit rambly. Hopefully you got something out of it. But yeah, I guess also with the Senor Pink fight, like, because Frankie was also a part of it, and I don't know how, like, I guess, like, part of it was like, oh, being a man, and last time there was, like, the Frankie kissing the one girl, and Senor Pink using the bikini top of another one as, like, a napkin, and I'm like, I guess, like, they both kind of, like, look down on him as kids. Like, in Senor Pink, it kind of makes sense, because he has his wife that he still loves after all these years. Frankie, like, I don't, like, it's his fight, but I don't see how it's like relevant to his character much at all, let alone with the sexual harassment on top of that. So yeah, I'm gonna label that as a small oof there, maybe in a big oof. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't really have much to say about that one.
Yeah, see,
this is what I mean, like, this I think was the first arc really in One Piece where like I felt disappointed. Maybe that's just because I had really high expectations because of all the build-up Doflamingo had.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, he's the first like antagonist that are gone.
But yeah, there are like a number of like this stretch of chapters in particular. Felt like it kind of dragged. Like we just talked about Frankie versus Senor Pink. That one didn't really grab me. Yeah, I don't know. I just wasn't really feeling it.
Yeah, see, it's like I'm the opposite. Like the fights were because the later stretch that like gets maligned is the birdcage, when the birdcage is closing in. I was personally like super fucking hype throughout all that, but like no, like yeah, it is kind of a controversial arc. Like again, I'd recommend reading that comment, the 3-part comment by Wyatt. Now that you've on the last episode, now that you've like read the whole arc, and maybe it'll, you know, get at some of your feelings. Maybe you'll disagree, agree in some areas. But because it's like, again, like it's such a long arc and there's so many things going on that needed to be resolved. Like that's the thing, like it's also like blisteringly fast, yet it's also like the longest arc in the series. So like I was engaged through all of it, but I love One Piece, so of course. But yeah, there are parts of it I'm like, like some of the fights, like what's the one fight? Like the Mathwiz giant one. Was just like, and even then like none of the fights are particularly like great. Like Luffy versus Doflamingo I think is good, but like, you know, like I do like the Bart Gladius one, like the ways the powers were playing off each other, and Bart, you know, Bart's a goofball, so I'm gonna enjoy anything he does anyway. And you also had Cavendish sort of like making, like, because Hakuba was like a big part of like his fame, or it was a part of it, because he like Bastille mentioned that, he accepted the Hakuba persona because of the fame it brought him. Or the fame, like, from the areas that, Hakuba always appeared in areas that he happened to be. And he kind of, like, controls it a bit more, as he's also, like, letting himself be, a subordinate to someone he hated, like, 5 minutes ago. So that was nice. The Mancherry one, or Leo and Giola, was just kind of there. Mancherry's adorable, and she has a funny, like, thing with Leo, because she's, like, being, like, a princess, and she wants to be saved but Leo kind of just, like, hates her. So that's kind of cute. Yeah, I'm just blowing through chapters at this point. Okay, so, there are a couple more fights, and I think probably one of the bigger... Do you have particular thoughts about, Diamante versus Kairos? Because that's a bigger one, I think. Because he's one, Diamante is, like, one of the big dudes, and Kairos has been an important character, so...
I don't know. Like, I understand how this one is, like, thematically relevant, but, like, even, I don't know, I just don't really have much to say.
Oh, real quick, I forgot to mention, because I wanted to talk how their fighting styles, like, match sort of how their thing, but I forgot to mention, because Baby 5, her whole thing is that she wants to be used, and she also turns into a weapon, something that it's a tool, so it took me, I didn't realize that until, when she came up in Punk Hazard, I think. So, just thought I'd point that out there.
Well, but, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I like it when the powers reflect the character.
Yes, exactly. Not as like I'm trying to think, like, how does Singer Pink? He swims through stuff. I don't see how that particularly matters, I guess. But for this one, it's good because sort of what you have here is, like, you have the current arena champion fighting the previous one. And so, like, Diamante uses a bunch of, like, tricky bullshit. Like, he fights with the sword, but he's also got a lot of weird tricks and shit with his flag powers. Like, he does the rain of spike balls. So he fights in, like, a tricky way. Whereas Kairos is a very straightforward fighter. And he talks about how he's fighting for the, like, he's glad to feel the pain because, he was a toy for so long. The pain is proof of his humanity, as he says. And then he sort of, like, all that anger. Like, when after it doesn't work, Diamante tries to fight him in a straight up fight, and Kairos crushes him, pretty basically. Because, like, yeah, Diamante falling on Scarlet's grave was nice. There's also a small thing here from, like, Robin, because, like, it's not directly stated, because, like, but I mean, it's stated elsewhere with, like, the Alabasta Dressrosa parallels. But here you have Robin protecting the princess. And, so that the father, whereas, like, last time on Alabasta, she was the one who captured the princess and the father. So, like, now she's helping where before she wasn't. She was on the other side. So, it would have been neat to see, like, a direct reference to that, but it's still fine.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool connection. I do like that.
Because Robin is good.
There was also, like, the one little spot after the fight ends where... Because, like, she makes her like, hand flower thing to, like, protect the princess from to protect Rebecca from all the fallen spikes, but she gets, like, her, I don't know, her, like, thing has a few holes in it, and she gets, like, struck in the back.
Yeah, there's holes in the, like, thing of flowers, and she's bleeding out. So she didn't just protect Rebecca with her powers, she protected her with, like, her body, and didn't let them see any of her pain, and, like, because, like Robin hasn't gotten really hurt since, like, fucking when Spannen was beating her up on Enya's lobby, so it's like, ooh, damn. Like, Robin's good. And I guess one more fight. I just thought it was, like, it's not really big, like, character-wise, but you get Zoro versus Pica. And I kind of like it because I like Zoro using his brain. Like, he comes up with 5 different, like, plans, and, like, goes through, like, oh, no, that one will work. That one will work. And, he ends up coming with one that works. I don't know, Zoro doesn't use his brain a lot, and it's neat to see him do that. And he teams up with some other guys, and it's cool. Also, I never read this with the official translation, so when he uses billion-fold world, I was like, what the fuck? I don't know. It's because that's a big number he's thrown out there.
So what was the other translation then?
It was probably just the same thing in Japanese, which means I didn't get anything out of it because it's just Japanese
so it was
words.
just Japanese, and so this was like the first like English thing.
Yes, because that's a lot of fans translations, like they leave the English translation in like the margins and they just leave it in the original Japanese for some reason. So like for Jinbei's attacks especially, I didn't like actually like bother like understand. Oh, brick fist, yeah, until I read the official translation where they actually leave it in English. I don't know, translators are weebs. But yeah, I kind of like him systematically like figuring out how Pica's powers worked and breaking him down before destroying him in the end. So that was cool. Like, I guess also, I wonder if part of the reason these fights aren't as engaging to some people, like, is, you know, like, not that I was into all of them, but, like, Luffy had a pretty tough fight. He had to go all out. So did Law, and Law was pretty weakened, but, like, almost every fight ends in one hit. Like, it's kind of similar to, like, to Arlong in a sense, except the characters aren't handicapped, per se, where, like, Arlong is just, like, way above the rest of them, and, like, and since they aren't handicapped, like, yeah, like, Zoro ends the fight in one, like, real decisive hit. Kairos, I'm pretty sure, beats Diamante in, like, one hit. Like, they're just a lot, they're pretty quick fights, all things considered. There's just a lot of them, so I wonder if that's part of why people are engaged in them. You know, they're just quick, so, maybe. Oh, we do get a little flashback with Mihawk. That was nice. You can't drink until you've learned hockey, pretty much.
I mean, I did like the whatever it means for Zoro's character that, like, try not to, like, scratch your blades. Like, that's what the hockey does. It, like, so before it was, like, you know, no wounds on the back. That was, like, the big thing, and now we're kind of, like, adding to that. Like, okay, now I can't break my blades.
Mm-hmm. Right, because he even said, like, you've broken my swords before. But, yeah, he's stronger now, so that's cool. Like, he's stronger, he's smarter, like, we haven't seen his Mihawk training, but he's clearly gotten quite a bit from it. So anyway, back up to the palace. Luffy beats Bellamy. We already kind of talked about that. Doflamingo there's a flashback to him and Law, where, you know, Doflamingo stresses how, like, meaningless Law's life has been because he's about to die. And there's a fucking Doflamingo tries to get him to perform the immortality surgery, and he's like, okay, yeah, I'll grant if you can grant these wishes, bring Cora to life and kiss everyone's ass in the entire country. Like, he's Law's such a snarky bitch, like, and then he flips him off, like, so this was, I also thought what Doflamingo did after that was interesting, because he's shooting Law, and he's like, you know, why do you have Corazon on your jacket? Why is your crew named the Heart Pirates? And he's like, he doesn't understand why Law cares for Corazon, and but because what Doflamingo says is that you won't sit on the Heart Throne. Like, all he sees in Law, like, he sees, like, himself in Law, so I guess he sees like oh, why? So, you know, Law obviously isn't going to join my group and take that heart seat, but he doesn't understand, I guess. So.
Well, yeah, because I guess with Doflamingo's upbringing, like, all he knows is, like, power. Like, he feels like I mean, even in one of these little flashback scenes, it's like, we're gonna make you the king of the entire sea. So, like, for Doflamingo, he's used to, like, being on some kind of throne, and, like, that's the end game, is, like, you know, why do people do things? To, I don't know, achieve power or whatever. Well, like, Law, right? Like, why is he still clinging to Corazon? He thinks of it as like, oh, does he think he's gonna, like, take his place? But that's not what. Yeah,
that's
Law's
obviously
doing.
Not the case. And then
because with Doflamingo's nihilism, if all humans are evil, there can't be any. There can't be any, you know, personal attachments or anything like that.
Right. Like, he doesn't know about Law's, the heart that Corazon gave him, so he's just trying to see himself in Law, someone who he was ready to bring him up to be his right hand, pretty much, because of how similar they were, but, you know, that their differences confuse him now, so. Yeah, it was a neat little moment.
I will say, now that I'm looking through because again, like, with all the flashbacks being cut up, and, you know, some of these are a little, like, it's not all chronological. Like, you did say there was the one where Treble, like, gives him the gun and the devil fruit. So, okay, so, like, now that I'm, like, trying to piece together, like, okay, which came first, like, if these guys found Doflamingo before he killed his father and, like, made him, you know, kind of coerced him to go that direction, maybe that makes a little more sense than, like, why Corazon would perceive him as just being evil. Like, he doesn't have the full picture.
Yeah, like, I guess his subordinates gave him the power to do what, like, to act on his feelings, kind of, is what I like, because he gave him the, like, because he obviously, like, he would have killed his father if he, and then he did once he had the means. Like, he decided to take his life into his own hands, like, because he actually even, like, they mentioned that he tried to go to Marijoa with his father's head, but was turned back and nearly killed. So it's like, he escaped. So, like, and that's when they started to see him as, like, this god. Because that's the thing with Doflamingo, because he keeps trying, like, his father brought him down to the level of humanity, and he wants, but then his followers saw him as a god. Like, he used Conqueror's Haki at age 10, which is a feat only Ace has done, I'm pretty sure. Like, I think they're the youngest Conqueror's Haki users. So, like, they saw him as, like, the one, like, there's the panel of him, like, standing on, like, the rubble, and all his officers bowing to him. Like, he's, like, I think even when the fighting is going on, like, there's, Law stabs him, and he's about to go to his knees, and Treble says, no, don't, a king should never kneel. Like, they just, like, look up to him so much, and he accepts that, and it's kind of interesting how that goes into the final fight, because there's a really cool moment, when Luffy beats Doflamingo.
I do think, now with the way you had phrased it at one point, it kind of makes me think about this a little more, because, like you said, his father had, like, stepped down from that higher position,
godhood,
from that godhood, and so, like, Doflamingo, like, his goal was, like, to get, well, as a kid anyway, before he realized that wasn't going to work, but, like, he tried to get back to that position, and he couldn't. So it's like, I don't know, I think it's an interesting read on, like, because again, I'm viewing this in a way like I did with, like, the Fishman Island racism thing. Like, how does this, like, what kind of message is this sending? And, like, with Doflamingo, like, his family had stepped down from that spot, and, like, he wanted to get back to that perch, but, like, he can't, there's, like, a ceiling there. He can't break through it again. Like, once you step under it, you can't get back on top.
Yeah.
Which,
He's just a human now. He has no human has no business trying to become a god. Like, because the only way you can become a heavenly dragon is being born, basically. Which is like, and that's because like I think I mentioned this a while ago, but like, why does Aka Inu hate Luffy? Not because he toppled like so many of the world government's installations, but because he is the son of Dragon. Like that's why Ace needed to die, not because of anything he did, but because he's the son of Roger. Like it's their blood which is why they need to be stamped out, because that's what the world government values: the blood of the ruling families, the heavenly dragons. So yeah. And I guess that's also part of why Doflamingo fears the D, because obviously Luffy doesn't really know about it or care, but that he's a D, like he doesn't know shit. But everyone, Doflamingo kind of fears it. Anyway, I forget if I had anything else to say. Hopefully, I'll remember later. So yeah, Luffy comes back up. He already had a plan with Law, but Doflamingo starts shrinking the birdcage with the intent of killing everyone, pretty much. And see, Law keeps trying to, like, he wants to be the one to beat Doflamingo. Like, he does his gamma knife and, like, cuts up his organs, but Doflamingo, like, uses his powers to, like, stitch him together. Like, it's just fucking, like, the way the powers are playing off each other. Like, Doflamingo's string is fucking crazy. Like, the clone I'm a little on, but, like, most everything else he did with his stuff was fine. But then, we get a great moment from Luffy that really illustrates, like, why it's Luffy who defeats Doflamingo, and not Law. Like, it's actually after the Treble fight. I'm skipping ahead a bit, but, like, Law, he's the one trying to pull the trigger that Corazon couldn't fire. He's the one, the Shadow of Vengeance, lit to there to take down Doflamingo. But Luffy, before he activates Gear 4, he says, like, you're the one, Doflamingo has pissed off his friends and made them cry, so Luffy's got to protect everything, so that Luffy's fighting to protect, where Law is fighting to destroy, and that's sort of why Luffy's the one who, fights in the end.
Yeah, because I guess if Law fought Doflamingo and defeated him, then in a way, it's kind of like, it's not like a total defeat of Doflamingo, because, like, that mentality of fighting to destroy still wins out in the end. But, like, if it's Luffy,
right.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I was going to say,
also,
I don't
like,
really have a problem
with... it also goes into the control thing, because, like, Law isn't free, and, like, if he fights through that way, where Luffy chooses to protect his friends because, like he said in the flashback, he doesn't want to be alone. That's, his choice, but whereas Law, he's acting for what he thinks is the will of another. He's kind of like a slave to what he thinks Corazon wanted of him. And Doflamingo's, he's all about controlling people through anger. Like, Law even says that directly. So, but even though he doesn't see it in himself, that he's also more or less being controlled, because he doesn't understand Corazon fully, like he thought he did. Oh yeah, also there's did you have any thoughts on the very brief Trouble fight? With Law versus Trouble?
No. Like, it was Law cut him up and he loses.
Yeah, well, because it was also Law kind of doing the same thing that Doflamingo does, because he talks about how, like, Trouble's family bonds mean shit. Like, oh, you're the only one who thinks you guys are a real family. Like, to me, you're just all Doflamingo's puppets. And then Trouble gets like, oh no, you fucking didn't. And then Doflamingo even says, like, hey, don't, like, Trouble, calm down. Like, it's like reverse. They're so similar that, like, Doflamingo understands immediately what Law is doing, but Trouble just gets, he's just being controlled by Law, because Law's got that Doflamingo attribute to him. So yeah. So, like, it's that, like, Trouble falls exactly to what Law didn't fall to, because Luffy fought in his place, basically. Though I will point out there's a bit of an inconsistency, because, like, there was a bit of a trick where, like, oh, Trouble isn't actually a Logia type. He's a Paramecia who pretends to be a Logia type. Like, he's actually super skinny. Except back when Usopp cut him in half, like, there's a panel where Trouble, like, is getting cut in half by Usopp's, like, shuriken leaf thing before he beats the shit out of Usopp, and, like, kind of looks like it's a Logia type. I'm just throwing that out there. So he might have changed his mind over the course of the arc. So it's not a major thing. It's just I mentioned it before. There are little inconsistencies here and there. So it happens, I suppose. So anyway, Luffy gets Law out of there. Goes back to fight Doflamingo. I really like the art. Like, there's two pages in particular where, like, Luffy, like, kicks and Doflamingo blocks, and, like, Luffy spins around and kicks, like, 2 more times, and the third one gets him. I don't know, it's just cool. So what did you think about Gear 4th, Luffy's new ability?
So at first I had thought I didn't know about this, but I guess, like, I had seen, like, maybe like a shot from the anime or whatever of it, and I, like, just thought it was Nightmare Luffy or something. So, like, when the transformation happened, I was like, oh, I've seen this before, but, like, I didn't know that Gear 4 was a thing, so I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, I like the design, I like the powers. In the past I've said I didn't care for how, like, it kind of comes out of nowhere, but now I don't mind as much, because, like, okay, one thing that was kind of, I guess, unintentionally misleading about how this arc handled Gear 4 was, like, because when it runs out, he's unable to use his hockey for 10 minutes because he exerted himself so much. But, like, he even says that he can run around, but he ends up getting carried around by Gyatz, the announcer, which, like, including me, I had the misconception that, like, Luffy just can't move after he uses it, which isn't true. So, like, it's just kind of weird that the first instance it has, like, an exception, because, like, Luffy does, to Oda's credit, Luffy does say, like, I can still run around, but it's like, by being carried around by Gyatz, he allows himself to recover stamina as well, I suppose, is what, happened there. So yeah, it's fine. I just, like, he explains it in an SBS, like, later, like, after this stretch, like, it's a while, but, yeah, just pointing it out. I do think the abilities are cool. Like, I like how he like, folds his rubber into itself to make, like, a cannon, kind of, and it's just cool. And, of course, it's, like, I think one of the best pages is, like, he, like, drop kicks Doflamingo, and then he's just, like, bouncing, like, he can't stand on the ground because he's too bouncy. It's so stupid. And there's also a moment where Doflamingo kicks him, but he's still bouncy, so it's like, it restores his Devil Fruit resilience, which is cool. Gear 4th is cool, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, because Doflamingo's like, what? He's using hockey, but he's still rubber.
Right. So he's, like, hard, but also rubbery. So, he's making, his abilities his own through, continued, like, practice and use. Okay. Also, here's another thing, because Doflamingo uses what's called Devil Fruit Awakening. And we've seen, this is the second time we've heard of it, because Crocodile mentioned it back on Empel Down with the demon guards. He said that they'll be back up soon. They're awakened Devil Fruit users, whatever that meant. And now we're seeing, like, a different aspect to it, where Doflamingo's, like, he's able to turn the surroundings into string through his power. So, and one thing I wanted to point out about that was, like, there's one part in particular where he, like, gets down on one knee and, like, puts his hand on the ground to do it, and that pose looks really familiar. Because that's what Crocodile did when he turned all the surroundings to sand. So I wonder if it's, like, there's, like, a bit of a retcon. Because, like, Crocodile's powers seem a bit different because it's, like, with his powers, it's less like he's turning the area into sand and more that he's dehydrating it, and that as a result turns it to sand. So I don't know if he's going to, like, say that was awakening, like he just, you know, he trained himself to do that, because, like, he doesn't turn Luffy to sand, he just dehydrated them. So just a weird connection. I don't know, awakening still hasn't been fleshed out, so
I don't know. Yeah, I know another complaint in the Best Guy Ever video was like, oh, Dofi too strong, but, like, I don't know, I was kind of okay.
His points were weird, yeah.
Well,
yeah,
I mean, like...
because, like, the weird points, because he points out his design, you know, his first appearance on Skype, and he's like, look, he's skinny. Does this, look like a strong character to you? And I'm like, Luffy's small. Does this look like a strong character to you? Like, Luffy's first major fight, he was this tiny dude fighting a big old dude with an axe, and Luffy's, like, way stronger. So it's like, I don't know, appearance isn't really a point to use for a character's strength. I don't think, like, look at the Tontas. They're, like, these tiny dwarf people, and everyone comments, like, whoa, you guys are really strong. So it's like, yeah, that was kind of a weird point, and I've never understood that one.
I feel like I feel like I could, because, I mean, like, maybe Doflamingo could have used more of, like, the puppeteering specific characters. Like, I know, like, oh, what if he had puppeteered, like, earlier he did, like, a thing with Sanji, so it's like, oh, what if he puppeteered a Straw Hat? But, like, he, like, if he had made his two Straw Hats fight each other. But he did use it with Bellamy, and, like, there was a meaningful fight out of that. I mean, it didn't last all that long, but it happened. So, I mean, I don't know, that was kind of fine for me. I guess the only moment that I thought was maybe a little, was, like, Luffy just kind of bursting out of his control.
Yes, that's what I figured we were going to come to. So, like, my thing about that is because, like, as is the thing with a lot of, like, quote-unquote plot holes that the author could explain, but didn't, because, like, I've talked about it before in my server, and, like, there's a few ways it could, like, okay, so some observations. Jozu didn't necessarily know about Doflamingo's abilities, whereas in Dressrosa, he'd been using them constantly. He was way more tired, like, so maybe his strings weren't as strong. Like, he had the birdcage going, it was controlling people, it was shrinking, he'd been fighting for hours, like, both of them were tired, so that you know, like, Luffy somehow was able to, like, I don't know how he was able to move his arm to activate Gear 4th in the first place. Like, I think the anime added a bit with him actually, like, moving his arm to his mouth, like, slowly, like, literally fighting against control, because Doflamingo used the same ability against, like, you know, one of Whitebeard's top commanders, you know? So, like, it's like, so there's, like, ways that the author could have explained why, but he didn't. Like, so, and that's the weird part, really. Like, because that's the thing, is, like, the author can make up any explanation he wants, and, you know, anyone who isn't going to be satisfied isn't going to be satisfied either way, you know, like, so it doesn't bother me that much, but it's weird, because, like, I don't even think there's been an SBS thing of him explaining it, so, like, again, it's weird, because, like, there's reasonings, but they're all, like, fan thing, and Oda hasn't said anything himself, so it's just a really weird moment.
Yeah, I mean, it's... Maybe it feels like a little more out of place in One Piece, where that, I mean, like, I don't know, I guess One Piece does have its moments where characters just kind of, like, power through things on their willpower. So I don't know, I'm not, like, super hung up about it, because, again, like, with Bleach, like, I guess one of the points people would complain about with Bleach is, like, oh, look at this ass pull power up. But, like, I don't know, Bleach always had kind of, like, that sort of thing going for it, and I just never really cared. Like, I thought it was fine.
Yeah, that's kind of my thing, is, like, I don't, like, care about the little shit. Like, my issue with, like I think Pedantic Romantic had a great video on plot holes, because, Sword Art Online, the Gun Gale one, it starts off with the main character getting, like 30 games, because they all have this, randomized character, building mechanic, and, you know, if you apply any amount of reality to it, it's dumb, but her argument was, like, it doesn't actually impact the show any. Like, in fact, it adds to the show, and that was also kind of what I talked about in my Anime is Unrealistic video, where it's, like, things, like, if you're, you know, I mean, this is more of, like, in the realm of the story, like, the rules of the story, but, like, I guess the sentiment is the same, where it's, like, yeah, it's kind of a plot hole, but does it affect the meaning? Like, maybe, but, like, you know, like, there's a lot of things to take out of the conflict without, you know, and it's a weird moment, and because people like overvalue like fights and power scaling and stuff. So it's a really weird moment. I don't quite understand why it happened. But like, cause he could have just had Doflamingo not trap Luffy, with that power. So yeah, like there isn't particular meaning in it like in Luffy, like I don't know, but that I could think of off the top of my head at least. So yeah, it's just weird. It's just weird. Is what I'm trying to say. So anyway, Luffy beat the shit out of Doflamingo with the Gear 4 a bit. It doesn't work. Because Doflamingo's too fucking strong. And this part I thought was really cool, because it's kind of continuing Luffy's character arc from Fishman Island. So what happened during Fishman Island is Luffy said, I will protect everything, but ultimately, in order to protect everything, he needed Shirahoshi, to help. And she helped, kept Noah from being destroyed. Here, we have Luffy sort of like, he was unable to beat Doflamingo on his own power, but he puts, his hand, like, sort of, like, he lets Gyatz and everyone, the Colosseum fighters, like, fight in his place while he rests. Like, he's relying on other people, like, he barely knows to, so, like, he'll be able to beat Doflamingo, but only with all this other support. So it's like, Luffy, the one who, says he will protect everything, is letting other people endanger themselves so that he could save everyone, so to speak. So that was, I was like, whoa. And so, like, as a result, like, I think part of that, like, there's, like, the part where everyone's, like, trying to push against the birdcage. Like, you have, Bartolomeo's doing his barrier. You have Frankie and the Tontas pushing the factory. Zoro and Fuji. Like, everyone's just fighting. Like, Manchuri's crying and healing everyone. And I got, like, a little watery-eyed. Like, just because of everyone fighting, trying to, like, standing against Doflamingo, and I thought it was good. So yeah, I just thought it was good. There's also one panel I really like where after Doflamingo is fighting the Colosseum fighters, and like there's just like a bunch of like bodies on the ground, and he's got his awakened strings, like impaled dudes hanging off of him, and then Doflamingo's just there in the middle of the destruction. It's just like a fire, the smoke in the air, like it's just it's a really good panel. Did you have any thoughts about that little runaround sequence? Or
I don't think so.
Okay. There's another moment that takes place during there. Okay, let's talk about Rebecca. So, because earlier we had Rebecca, she, with Kairos said, you don't need to fight anymore. The parent is protecting the child. But after that, Kairos goes to deal with the strings, but Rebecca says, like, the strings are, she thinks, like, what does she think? If the birdcage is really immovable, then everyone's everyone's going to get hurt. So she goes to try and stop Doflamingo on her own, and as a result, like, she's putting herself in danger after, like, her father already said, well, because, like, even when everyone's splitting up, like, I noticed that there's, like, a divide between, because, like, I guess Otis kind of does that, where he divides, like, the warriors and the people, like, with Fishman Island, there was Neptune. Like, he didn't help with Otohime because he's a warrior. He had blood on his hands. And Otohime, she was pure, so she was, she fought for, everyone to, get along with humans. And then in Dressrosa, you have, like, there's the protectors who go out, like, they even, like, get, like, able-bodied men, just random dudes, to go and stop the barrier, while everyone else who isn't sort of goes to the center where it's safe. So, and so here you have Rebecca, like, because the thing with Kairos is, like, he tries to hide his weakness. Like, there's a moment after it all ends where he, like, goes behind a rock to cry in relief about how Dressrosa is finally safe. But, Rebecca, so here's why I think it's funny that or not funny, but, like, where I don't agree with people making it out to be a gender issue. Because the character, like, Rebecca is obviously, like, supposed to be, like, a, an antithesis to Vivi. But, like, the actions her characters takes are honestly, like, the ones I found most similar were to Luffy, during the war specifically. Because, like right after Kairos fought Diamante, he got fucked up by the metal stars. And, she thinks, like, oh, Doflamingo's too strong. She's still not able to rely on her parent to protect her, especially because he just got so hurt fighting Diamante. Like, so she's doing what what Luffy did with Ace, like, so where, like, both the children saw their guardian figures as, like, weak, and were trying to put themselves, like, above them, which, the child putting themselves in front of the parent. So Rebecca goes out to fight Doflamingo, where, and just like Luffy tried to save Ace. So that's kind of what, like, that's I guess why I think it's kind of funny that, like, because whereas I guess I don't see the sexism thing with Rebecca, especially when she's so similar to Luffy. And like the key difference between the two that I noticed is that like Luffy, like, because that's the thing is Rebecca, I'd almost call her more selfish than Luffy, because her ultimate goal is she wants to live in peace with Kairos. She just wants to live with her dad, and that we kind of see more of that at the end. Whereas like, but she also has her promise to her mother, where she won't, she doesn't want to cause harm. And so, but whereas, so she's kind of, and in order, like, she's not willing to sacrifice one for the other. Like she's not able to, like, she kind of tries, but also isn't able, like, she met Diamante, and then next time we see her, she's running away in fear. Like, she's not able to, like, she hits him, during the Colosseum, but doesn't amount to anything. Like, yeah, so, like, she's that character, she's the daughter of a warrior and a princess. So, yeah, but, like, whereas Luffy, he's able to sacrifice, like, he sacrifices arms against Magellan. He sacrifices his lifespan to try and save Ace. So I wonder if that's part of like why Rebecca is disliked, where it's like she has all these desires but she's not willing to sacrifice herself for them, but she also kind of ends up with like everything in the end because, she tries to fight, the miracle happens, even though she doesn't, like, I guess she didn't really get a fight, she doesn't really, I don't know. I'm just trying to wrap my head around why people don't like Rebecca. Like, I kind of get it, but there's more to it too. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts?
I don't know. I wouldn't even say that she's really like a super interesting character. Like, I don't know. I'm on her. I don't really have much of a stance.
Yeah, well, like, I guess another aspect to her character that I need to like fully like break down in my head because like there's a moment earlier where Pica's going towards the Royal Plateau, because I forgot to mention earlier, and King Riku, Pica's going to the plateau, and Riku's there, and he says something that's pretty interesting, where he says that, like, because about his whole pacifism thing, he says that, it kind of fucked over the country. Like, they were completely unable to do anything against Doflamingo because of that pacifism. He was hated by the townsfolk for years, and then, and when Pica was coming, he basically said, he said, that's what, in his eyes, that's what it means to be human, is to, be able to, like, because he's willing to hold on to his, like, beliefs to the point of to the point of being willing to die for them. So I kind of compare that to Sanji, where, like, Sanji will not hit a woman even if he dies. So it's like, what I feel like the author is saying, more or less, like, he's not, like, he does ultimately reward these beliefs, but at the same time he's showing that, like, only, like, he's, I guess, or maybe you could say that he's rewarding the will to, like, die for your beliefs by not killing off the kid. Like, Sanji's not dead. The Riku family is all kind of okay. But, that's also kind of important in contrast with Doflamingo, because they have different ideas of what it means to be human, whereas Doflamingo believes that, everyone wants blood. The Riku family, chooses to, that, their decision to, like, live and die by their pacifistic beliefs is more like, that's what it means to be human. And so, like, I guess Rebecca kind of factors that into that a bit. Like, I still haven't figured out fully why, but it's just sort of a connection I'm making. So I don't know. It's like, I'm not sure if, like, Rebecca's interesting or if the reaction to her is what I want to deal with too. So, but anyway, I think all that's left is the finale. Yeah, because that was pretty much it. Doflamingo, like, again, he made his strings feel like they were, unstoppable, so Rebecca came to fight him, and then he controlled the two into fighting each other, and Luffy comes in, Lucy, the hero, that was hype. Luffy's always good, though. Did you have any thoughts on the finale of the fight with Luffy's final blow against Doflamingo?
I did like how, like, when Doflamingo was defeated for real, like, his glasses fell off and broke. So it's like, yep, he's done.
Right, Oda's been... Well, we kind of saw one of his eyes when he, like, because he fell asleep reading the book in the flashback, and then you see one of his eyes shoot open as he's, like, because he has the nightmare of his flashback of his history, which might have been him, because he was reading a book on Flevance on Whitetown, so I wonder if he was connecting that to his history, and, like, I'd never thought about that, because I think that was before he said that he was going to make Law his right-hand man, so maybe. But anyway, I also really like how the fight ends up because like Luffy's above Doflamingo and Doflamingo's like, oh, you want to fight me in the air? And he's like, he talks about how like, you know, I'm a god. Like he even uses an attack called 16 Bullets God Thread. And you know, like he's trying to say about how he's you were born to be human refuse and helpless puppets. I'm not like you humans. And this is great because so Doflamingo, he wants to achieve godhood. He's trying to go up. And so like he's literally like trying to go up to fight Luffy. But in like wanting to be a god, like what he kind of ends up doing is making him like you could say like symbolically or thematically, whatever way you want to put it. He's making himself vulnerable to the D, the one who defeats the gods. So like he has to like prop himself as a god and go above to because that's like his whole like goal, his whole dream. But in doing that, he makes himself vulnerable to the enemy of God that is Luffy, the D, and he gets knocked all the way back down, specifically to the underworld that he like because he gets knocked down to his port. The port that was all of Dressrosa's connections to the underworld as Joker. So it's like, it's just really great how the environment of the island played into that with Doflamingo's defeat. I thought it was really fucking cool. And then Gyatz announces Lucy's victory over Doflamingo, and everything's cool. So any final thoughts on the climax of Dressrosa? Or I'm guessing no, but I'm going to ask anyway. Did you say no and I didn't hear you?
No, it's more the stuff that comes after that's interesting.
That's what I kind of figured. Because you get all that arc, that in-between arc world building. And like, well, right after we get a little conversation between Sabo and Jesus Burgess, because I glossed over it, but like when Luffy passed out, Burgess came down and Sabo came to his rescue. And they fought for a bit, and specifically Burgess, he points out like Ace's words before he like, "Don't tell my brother." Like he didn't want Luffy to worry, and also, Jesus Burgess says he had no idea as to the value of his life, like, which is rough because Ace, he didn't have any value in his life, but it did kind of end up being important in the whole grand scheme of both the story and the setting. So, like, I don't know, it's a little rough. So yeah, then we get an interesting moment where, you know, Riku, you know, everyone wants him to be king again. You know, they're fine with having, like, they've seen, you know, death, so they're fine with living poor but in peace in wealth and war, you know, with the threat of war. So, and then Fujitora comes in, and he's like, on live video being broadcast to several islands, he says, the world government is responsible for letting a pirate reign free and destroy this island. I apologize on behalf of the world government. And like, oh shit.
Yeah, that was a really good moment. That was.
Oh man,
that was nice.
Yeah, it kind of puts all like, because like they even like suggest that he was like planning for it more or less, because you know he doesn't like the warlord system, so he specifically, you know, goes about the situation in a way that reveals the government's failings, like that, which is, you know, kind of like how I think his whole thing was, you know, like follow the rules of the government to show how fucked up it is. And here he is doing, you know, going a bit outside of that to show how fucked up the government is. And like right after that, you see Sakazuki, our Mr. Fleet Admiral, talking to the elders. You know, he's kind of pissed off that, because he hates pirates, and he's like, how the fuck does Doflamingo get away with this shit? Like, he's almost agreeing with Fujitora in a way, but, you know, the elders are more concerned about, you know, how they look, you know, how they're the public opinion and stuff. And then, oh, guys, there's some news coming in from Dressrosa. Oh, good. Oh, we see a bunch of the supernovas hanging around, reacting.
I really.
Oh, apparently. Go on.
I was gonna say I really liked in the interaction between Riku and Fujitora. When I liked the line where he says, "How could a man who lets pirates run wild on innocent folks turn his blade on a warlord of the sea and then act as though he dispenses justice?" Because, like,
oh yeah, Fujitora. Yeah.
So like
it was good.
His actions do end up making more sense in the end. Because like.
Yeah, I remember you saying you were frustrated with them last time.
Yeah, because at first, like, it all kind of points... It seems like he's letting Doflamingo do whatever, but then, you know, like, he did that to, I guess, set up Luffy to be the one. Like, he let the pirates settle the matter between pirates and kind of gave them the benefit of the doubt here. I mean, like, he said, like, that was the gamble he took. So basically, he let things play out that way so that he could frame the world government as, he was able to expose that flaw of the world government and, the flaws of the warlord system. And, like, just because this pirate is like, that was, I guess, the callback to Alabasta, with Doflamingo being a warlord of the sea, just like Crocodile was a warlord of the sea. The government couldn't really, like, they didn't have the authority to do anything. So they kind of just had, like, in that case, they just kind of sat back and let things happen, which is, like, not what most people would call justice. I mean, justice is a vague concept, but...
Yeah. Well, even in One Piece, like, every character has their own idea of it, so...
So for Fujitora, he's basically, like, I like it because, like, the government will take responsibility for, like, if he had gone in and taken action, then it would have looked like, a pirate... Again, like, it would have perpetuated the narrative of, like, a pirate did a bad thing, and the government stepped in and they squashed those filthy pirates for doing all their nefarious deeds. But that, it wasn't, like, it would have erased the nuance of the situation, and it would have just made the government look good, and it would have hid the flaws of the government. And so it was cool that he...
And that's kind of what, like, that's why Doflamingo is perfect for it, because, like, he as, like, a character is, like, the government hiding their flaws. Like, he was a heavenly dragon who knows this big secret, and now he's a warlord because they couldn't deal with him. So, like, they're hiding their mistakes, basically, like, because he could reveal this big secret and overturn the world if he felt like it, but they have to hide everything, so they gave him power, and that's what Akainu was pissed about when he was talking to the elders. Like, why is this Doflamingo fuck able to, like, pull strings with the government?
That's what I liked about Doflamingo. See, that is a good thing about Doflamingo, is, like, with him being the puppeteer and having all these connections, like, him being defeated is still a big deal, and that's why I don't really have much of a problem with Doflamingo being physically strong as well, because, like, I don't know, it's just, like, a manifestation of all the power he has over the world, because, like, even at the end, when he's getting kind of taken away, and he has that conversation with Tsuru, and he's like, I was the one, like, not only did I have, like, he held so much in place, like, the government, like, despite the fact that he was, like, the government kind of had to let him do whatever, because, like, he was holding a lot of he said, like, he's holding back the monsters, like, not only was he pulling the strings, but he was also, like, holding the reins, and so...
because, like, we see that he's got, like, there's countries that they can't get weapons anymore, they have to surrender, there's a bunch of people are pissed, and he's, like, controlling all these little conflicts through the world to keep, like, because Law even said on Punk Hazard that the world's been kind of, like, holding its breath for, like, 2 years, and now we can kind of see, like, Doflamingo is a big part of that, because he was keeping these conflicts, like, stable, basically, and now Law broke the gears by destroying the sad on Punk Hazard, which led to Dressrosa and Doflamingo's defeat. And so go on. Or if you had more to say.
I guess, like,
before I interrupted.
Doflamingo was as I guess that's just, like, the flaws of the system in place in One Piece, is that like, the government, they want to be the top power, and so, like, they'll do whatever it takes, even if that means that a guy like Doflamingo gets to run free and, oppress this kingdom just because, like, he has all these connections and he's doing things. Because now, I guess, the conflict is, who's going to take control? Because, like, now the emperors are going to be doing stuff, and you've got the worst generation acting up, and the government's still here, and the revolutionaries are moving around.
Yes.
So
that's such a cool page where you just see everyone in silhouette.
Yes, it's good. So now,
including Luffy with, like, his still got a doofy smile on, but somehow he looks, like, sinister, and it's weirdly, like, it doesn't work, but that's why it works too. It's so dumb. He's just such a goof.
But yeah, it is another interesting look in, like, the politics going around in the world of One Piece, and, how all these different things are connected, and, like, how stuff like this is allowed to just kind of persist. And again, that's why I feel like it draws a really cool sort of connection to, like, the Fishman Island stuff, because again, like, it's another flaw of the government thing, and Doflamingo's background kind of goes into, in a way, it's kind of like the opposite sort of I don't know if I'd call it racism, because again, like his is more about like the whole of humanity, like how people. I guess less of like a race thing, and more of like because I don't know, you could draw it as like a connection to like people in poverty versus like billionaires or whatever, and like that's the class, more of like a class thing as opposed to race. That's what I was looking for.
That's true. That makes more sense now that you put it like that, because it is they're like, I guess, sectarian would a way to, like, you know, there's different sects, it's so sport, you know, so to speak, the poor and the rich, the, you know, the humans and the fishmen, so to speak. So it is kind of like that in that way. Yeah, I see what you're saying now.
I forget how
it took
it had
a while,
been
but I see
described
it now.
before. Because there was like the what was there, like it was in the last stretch of chapters. Let me see if I still have that panel that phrased it. It was like the happy winners and the rebellious losers or whatever.
Yes. Right. The where the rebellious losers they are unwanted garbage. Like Luffy's talked about how it reminded him of Goa Kingdom, and on Dressrosa they were turned into toys.
Yeah, there's the world of the light of the winners. Doflamingo separates everyone into the obedient winners and the rebellious losers.
And you can apply that to Fishman Island like in two ways. One, Fishman Island itself is in the dark of the world. Like they're technically a world government allied like nation, but they have to rely on pirates to defend them. Like they're allied with Big Mom now. They were allied with Whitebeard before, and then there's, even within Fishman Island itself, there's the light, and then there's the Fishman district, the dark. So yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, it's good stuff. It's good stuff. Like seeing the big picture.
I guess just to kind of wrap up while we're on this topic, to kind of like wrap up my thoughts on Doflamingo, why I'm still kind of conflicted. I guess in a similar but different light to what you had kind of said earlier about like, like how Gear 4 Luffy was able to break out of the strings, and like it's like all you have to do is really just like give a reason for it, but Oda didn't really do that. For like Doflamingo's sort of more ambiguous background, or morally ambiguous background, it's like he could have just like, I don't know, I feel like there should have been more to just like lean in the direction, like it's open to interpretation, I guess. Maybe that was the intention, so like you could read into it and see these different things of like, you know, what's trying to be said here.
Yeah,
but there's no like clear cut answer, which I don't know, maybe that's the point.
Yeah, maybe. Well, because like, I mean, I'm probably going to be doing a video on this arc, specifically talking about Doflamingo, the Doflamingo family, and the Law and the Rikus. I don't know exactly how I'm gonna get, because it could be like really long. I don't know, because there's a lot to talk about. But and I'm not, well, because like I guess how I've been reading it so far is like with all the connections and parallels, like especially between Law and Doflamingo, because they're supposed to be like very similar to each other. So like I talked about how like Rocinante earlier, you know, I mentioned how he says Doflamingo was born evil, and yet he tries to help Law and give him a heart, you know. So like, yeah, so I don't know, maybe that's just like how I'm handling it. I don't know. We'll see. Like, you know, if you have any gripes, I'd be willing to hear them and, you know, account for them. Maybe I'll let you look at the script when I actually write it. I don't know. It'll be a while, because it's gonna, like, it's like, because time skip in general is pretty divisive, and this one is interesting because, like, with Fishman Island, you were on fucking board for that.
Yeah, like Fishman Island, like, supposedly the worst arc in One Piece, and I'm like, yo, this was pretty solid. Like, I'm not sure if I like Fishman Island more than Dressrosa even. Like, I don't know, I felt, like I said, Dressrosa was the first arc that, like, kind of disappointed me. Not even that I think it's a bad arc overall, but like I had higher expectations by this point, I guess.
Gotcha. Well, yeah, because like this whole like you've been relatively quiet this whole time, and I've been like, oh no, Mathwiz hates it.
Well, yeah, because like like I don't even think it's the worst arc in One Piece. Like if I look back, I guess like because this is my first time going through it, so like first impressions versus like what I think now. Like maybe if I looked back and said, I don't know, maybe like Usopp's introductory arc wasn't super great, like looking like it's good, and like at the time I liked it because I didn't really know what to expect from One Piece, but now after like so many great arcs, I have more of, I guess, like a higher standard of what I want to see, and Dressrosa met that in some regards, but not quite in all of them. So maybe that's
because that's kind of like how I used to feel about it, like before rereading it and coming to like making all these connections and stuff. Some of which I might have even forgotten. Like there's just so much to the arc. Like it's kind of hard to keep it on my brain and say everything I want to. But like Because with me, like that's what I've always said about Dressrosa. Like, it's good, but it's not like good. Like, it's not as good as all the other long arcs in this series. Like, it's not good enough to be like to justify 100 chapters.
Yeah.
Now I kind of disagree because like it has some slower spots. Like, so does Enies Lobby. Like the Rocket Man stuff on the way to like that was kind of in the same way that like the slow point between the reaching the palace and the toys being released was kind of like and then some of the fight like I guess there's less good fights like compared to like Enies Lobby, but even then like the Luffy versus Doflamingo is pretty damn good. I got a lot out of it, and some of the other smaller ones I got some stuff out of too. But like so like I do it's like so I like honestly part of the reason I definitely don't rate it higher is because like again, it lacks the emotional connection for me. Like, there's a couple of moments that, got me a little watery-eyed, but nothing that made me, like, outright cry. Like, even though it's got, like, the Law flashback and Senor Pink and... Well, I did somehow start, like, getting a little watery-eyed during, like, the birdcage stuff, and that was unexpected, but it was cool. So, like, yeah, it's, like, I think, coming back around to it, I think, like, it's a really good arc. Like, it's probably around my top 5. I honestly don't know how to rate it. Like, maybe a little, I don't know, it's really good, but One Piece just has so many other good arcs that I'm not sure exactly how Dressrosa rates, so
I think
it's getting harder and harder.
Maybe another potential problem, like, because again, like, One Piece isn't over, so, like, maybe this isn't even, the end of this idea, like, maybe Oda will do more, because, like, obviously the Celestial, or the Heavenly Dragons or whatever are still around, and, you know, like... Even with, like, the racism of Fishman Island, it didn't quite seem like that was the end, because, like, it still kind of persists through different systems or whatever. So...
And you even said that you came to, because you can kind of appreciate it a bit more, like, seeing, like, literally the last chapter we read, where you saw how Doflamingo fit into the world at large, So it's like, when the picture was made bigger, you're like, oh, okay. And, like, I think, especially reading weekly, like, Dressrosa, like, with all these side characters, like Orlumbus and Cavendish and Idio, like, you don't know anything, like, why are we focusing on this character now? But, if you reread the arc, oh, there's why, because they're all part of the Luffy Alliance. But even then, with the Luffy Alliance, like, what narration do we get at the end? Like, oh, the Luffy Alliance is going to become the center of a massive incident later, but that's a story for another time. So it's like, there's this other big thing that we don't have the context. Like, maybe during that incident, we'll see a lot more of these characters and become more invested in them, and that will retroactively make us, make Dressrosa more, have more to appreciate, about.
So, like, part of my thoughts, or maybe even, like, complaints, is that, like, this arc in particular may not have given me everything I was looking for, but then again, maybe there's more to come. Because if I had just always that sort of I guess, because like the racism stuff was kind of set up in Saboti, and like obviously it wasn't the end there. Like there was more to come, or even in like Arlong, there was even like tiny little hints towards it. So like there are potentially other arcs that might look into this a little more, so I'll kind of like reserve total judgment for...
Right, like that's, One Piece is one massive story, and you're getting to the point where it's like, you're almost caught up, so it's like I personally, like, again, rereading it, like, part of it's, I'm rereading it, I'm appreciating it more, from that, because now I have more perspective on the story in general, and so, because I wasn't as keen on this arc in the past. It's still not one of my like absolute favorites, but it's I like it. But but it is part of an ongoing story still, and you're getting close to the part where it's you're gonna be with us, where you're weekly suffering. So yeah, yay. But anyway, but yeah, so. I know for a fact I'm gonna like I might not reread it again until it ends in a few years, but I will. I know I will. Then I'll have the most perspective possible. So
I think another potential concern is that Oda has a tendency to bring back certain characters, because as we see later on in these little Fallout chapters, the guy, he's back. Rob Lucci, he returns. So the character arc for Doflamingo might not even be complete yet. Like, he's going to impel down, but as we've seen before, like, just because a character is defeated, even if they end up in prison, that does not mean they're out of the story. Yeah. So you never know. You never know.
Yeah, and that would be definitely interesting if Doflamingo came back. but I have no idea how. And anyway, we should move on because we're not quite done. There's still a few more things to go over. Like for example, we get a bit of a Sabo flashback where it turns out that he was unable to go. Like he didn't show up at the war because he had amnesia, which is a little
Yeah.
but like yeah.
Amnesia is always a weird
like,
kind of plot element. It's like,
yeah.
oh, okay.
Well, I think because I thought about this recently, but it's like because it's definitely like like whenever it's brought up in fiction, it's well beyond like the thing of realism, and it's also something that's totally in the author's control. Like they control because like the way it works in fiction doesn't always make sense. Like and it tends to come across as contrived because the author like is deliberately doing these things, or convenient, which are buzzwords I'm not a fan of personally. So it's but I also understand like why people are dissatisfied with it in general.
I do think it also it also doesn't help that there are so many stories where if a character loses their memory, they're just kind of blank slates. And I don't know, the most recent example I can think of is something like Gridman, where the main character didn't, at least in my opinion, didn't really like. He didn't have much of a personality because his memory was lost.
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah. Like Gridman's not even the only example, and maybe it's not even the best example. But there are plenty of stories that will have a character like that, and then them regaining their memory is like a big paradigm shift, and it's like, oh, now they're a totally different character. But obviously, this exists in like a flashback, and we already had seen him after he got his memory back. So I think it's definitely not the worst. It doesn't
affect the story. It's just kind of a way to sort of like have it so Sabo. Like, explain why he wasn't there before. Like, why didn't he never reach out to Luffy or Ace before Ace died? And now, because he literally didn't remember them. So it's kind of, it kind of keeps him, and like, because if he did have his memory and chose not to like go after Luffy and Ace, it would have been kind of fucked. Like to bring a comparison for Bleach, Ichigo's dad, he knew about all the Soul Society shit. Like, well, but he never told Ichigo anything, and people kind of like look down on. Like, he even says in the story he's a shit dad, and he is kind of disliked by the community for it. So here you have Oda kind of avoiding that with Sabo, more or less, where he's like, oh, he couldn't do anything because he didn't know better, basically. But yeah, like it is often like how it's presented in media, like amnesia is like beyond reality, and like the author gets to decide everything. So yeah, I guess people are just generally frustrated with like the convenience / contrivance of it. So,
yeah, I guess that
like,
was kind of what I was trying to get at, was just like the stigma surrounding, because again, it's something like that, and maybe even mind control. It's something that the author can kind of like do whatever. Yeah, they can implement it as they wish, and there's, I don't know, sometimes it can, and because there can be bad examples of it, it might be easy to just kind of latch kind of throw it all together as a whole.
Like, because it's my belief where like the trope itself is never bad, it's always in how it's used, so like, and with amnesia, like how it's used here isn't of particular note. Like, it's not either really bad or good, it's just like it's there to explain why this didn't happen. More, it's him doing the explanation thing that he never did for like certain, like with the strings, because the author has complete control over their work, and so I don't mind it. It's just like, and that's the funny thing about One Piece and the reactions to it, where it's like, I think people like really do respect Oda highly. Like, one for example, like Oda's kind of done, like he did this earlier with when Doflamingo thought Law was dead, and he's like, oh, Luffy's gonna come up here and see your dead body. He kind of did a Kishimoto fake out, right? So, but like, I think. But that's like just a really common Shonen Jump thing, because by having these really crazy chapter ending cliffhangers, they increase their chances of doing well in the popularity poll, or the popularity, like the submission ratings, which we as the audience never see, but it's like, it's also determines part of the life or death of the series. So like, and Oda always tries to end his chapters on some kind of like boom moment, but like, I've noticed instances in the fan base where it's like he's just doing this thing that's honestly kind of normal by Jump standards, and yeah, understandably it's like kind of dissatisfying. But like, I don't know, I feel like people, maybe it's just my perspective as a One Piece fan who I don't interact with a lot of fan bases in general, but I guess I am slightly closer to the One Piece fandom. But they're just like, I don't know, like he's just doing something that's normal, but it's looked down upon more, maybe because they expect more of Oda. I don't know. I'm not sure, but we're talking about fan base now, and neither of us have much perspective on that. So, but anyway, like, it's fine, whatever. So, but yeah, Sabo leaves. I like there's a moment where he's like, "Oh, take care of Luffy. He's a handful," and Zoro like laughs, like, "Oh, you sound like Ace." Oh, I've never noticed this, cause like Frankie's fucking crying, but he also has his like face exposed because he's like doing repairs. So his face is the robotic part of his face is like smoking. He's short circuiting himself because of his emotions. Frankie's so good. It's so
yeah,
dumb.
I definitely didn't notice that, but that's awesome.
I've never noticed before, and I've probably read this like 2 or 3 times at least. And I didn't notice it during the reading. I just noticed it like literally right now, holding the volume in front of me. All right, so it kind of cuts around a bit. Like the Marines are like Fujitora is like rolling for Luffy, so that where it's like, oh, if it rolls a 1, we won't go after him. And like he gets 2 1s in a row, so he's like, oh, we're not going after Luffy. Rebecca's about to become a princess. Oh, we cut away to see Sanji's group, somewhere, wherever they are. Presumably Zou. That's where they're supposed to have been going. And they're fighting minions of Kaido. And there's a bunch of weird shit going on that we're probably not gonna find the answer to until next time, hopefully. And then we get a bit of an introduction. Oh god, this moment is so awesome.
Man who has a habit, a hobby, you could say, of attempting suicide.
Yeah, like fucking Kids Alliance who are going after red-haired Shanks. I forgot to mention.
Yeah, I like how
like,
they had that cutaway to them, and they're like, okay, that's fine. They're going after Kaido. We're not going after Kaido. We're going after Shanks. And then they just stumble into this scenario, like, oh, why is there this
the
big
best part about that is
human-shaped
that,
crater in the ground? Oh.
The best part about that is that Killer had, when he was saying that we're going after red-haired Shanks with all the like serious mode, but he's got like noodles like slopped out of his fucking mask and he's covered in sauce. Like, it's so dumb. But yeah, like, and you get a bit of a Rouge who's like, he gives a prayer to this man who has been defeated by a bunch of the emperors and the marines. But he's also sunk prison ships. He's the one who cannot be executed. Fucking Kaido. And he just fucking towers above the others. And it's like, holy shit. It's a good introduction scene. And his design is good. Like, I mean, we kind of don't see his eyes. And we also haven't seen Big Mom in full. Like, we saw her in shadow after Fishman Island. But, or maybe it was after Punk Hazard? I forget. But so we've kind of seen all the 4 emperors now. So that's cool. It's just a cool introduction. The strongest creature alive. Holy shit. Before we move on, or any other thoughts about any of that? Or
well, I mean, on the topic, I'm moving on to a different event now, but like on the topic of just having characters be doing something goofy over serious stuff, I liked when, like the Straw Hat Fleet, they had their like salute thing, and they did the toast or whatever, and Luffy's just like the big blob because he ate all his food, and so he's Balloon Luffy as he be. But it's just also in like this kind of serious moment, but he's just Luffy. It's great.
Yeah, there's always this exposition. Also, there's a character birthday calendar, which made you very sad because you do not share a birthday with a One Piece character.
Yes, as of what was this, like November 2015 or whatever the calendar thing was made, I do not share a birthday. Yes. However, someone may come up later because there is still stuff to come.
Yes, I looked it up and I let you know that there is indeed a character who you share a birthday with. They just have not shown up in the series at this point. Like if they did and the birthday was just revealed after this point, I would have just told you, but it's a character you wouldn't know if I told you. Cause I'm lucky. I share a birthday with, Luffy and Damalo Black, the fake Luffy, cause they were both born on May 5th, which is also the anime character birthday. Cause I guess it's Children's Day in Japan. So for some reason, a lot of anime characters have that birthday. Like, okay, just off the top of my head, exclusively from things that I like, Luffy, of course, Gon from Hunter x Hunter, Togami from Danganronpa, Oberstein from Legend of Galactic Heroes, Yunochi from Hidamari Sketch, Deidara from Naruto. Like, all these characters have the birthday of May 5th. So, like, it's just off the top of my head. I know there's more, for sure. So I guess I lucked out on the birthday lottery with anime characters.
Craftsdwarf confirmed for anime character. He's real life anime.
I am anime. Oh my god. Alright, so, moving on, we're almost done. Sengoku and Tsuru land. I love how Sengoku laughs his ass off when Fujitora's like gambling over Luffy's fate. Oh yeah, and then there's a bit of interaction with the Tontas, who are mentioners using her powers to heal people of the country.
I think this was before. Yeah, I think we kind of went past it already. But I liked the scene where Fujitora and Sakazuki were just arguing and just like screaming at each other through these transponder snails.
Oh yes, we did.
Or was that ahead?
We did skip that.
Okay.
Yeah. Because like. Yeah, Akainu, or Sakazuki's like,
he's like,
you better fucking arrest Luffy and Law, and he's like, fine, I will.
Like
the ultimate,
there was like the exchange where Sakazuki's like, you caused our justice to lose all face, and Fujitora's like, well, if your face is all you care about, keep it tucked away.
Or they had another line where it's like, if you need to like hide shit to not lose trust, you never had that trust in the first place. Like, he's just completely like, that's why I think the world conscription or the international military draft, I'm using the old name in my head, the fan translation name. Like, it's interesting because Fujitora, like, he didn't have to go through the ranks and like butt heads, like, because he would have been like Smoker if he went through the ranks, I think, and butted heads with the system because he doesn't agree with it. He's just like, he follows its rules to point out its flaws, but he doesn't. I don't think he agrees with it. Like Smoker even says like, if he had the same rank, he wouldn't have even done what Fujitora did. So like Fujitora maybe even disagrees with the system more than Smoker, but Smoker's a character who's been through the system. Like he almost got kicked out a couple times, but Fujitora got like a fast pass to admiralhood. And so, like, he keeps butting heads, and it's great. Fujitora's good. I also like this little conversation Riku has with King Elisabello, where he's like, if only I was some kind of god king who could prevent natural disasters. Like, he's making a joke about what Doflamingo, like, legitimately wanted to be. So, like, which I guess goes to show how different they are. There's a little conversation where, like, Luffy's just such a fucking dork. Like, he's like... what does Zoro say? Are you angry, crying, rushing, sleeping, or eating? Like, he's just like doing everything with his one face.
Yeah, he's like half of his face is asleep, but then he's also like eating with the other half and like trying to talk.
Like, one of my favorite gags where Luffy does something and they're like, are you even human? Like, because it's arguable. He's just so weird.
Can't wait for that plot twist when it turns out that Luffy was actually a Quincy... Soul Reaper, Hollow.
I was gonna say he's half Quincy, half Saiyan. That's it. Oh man. But anyway, so yeah, they talk a bit about Rebecca.
That's right. Before we move on, I did want to also say that like Luffy's. I like how he's like. That's just a family thing. Like, he's connected to Ace and Garp of like falling asleep during conversations because he hasn't fully recovered and like eating and whatnot. It's good.
Yes, Luffy's always such a dork. It's good. But yeah, he talks a bit about because Rebecca, they made a fake story about how she's like where she, because like, yeah, she was the daughter of a prince from another country who Scarlet ran away with, because Kairos is still like he's ashamed of like who he is, like he's this criminal, like he's not pure, and so Rebecca gets to become princess. So yeah, so that tie has been cut off. And then the Marines, Suru finally rolls, and the Marines are heading out to capture them. But Luffy runs off to do his own thing because he's a good boy. He goes to help Rebecca, because she doesn't want to be a princess. She wants to live with her dad, and so he kidnaps her. Oh man, like well, this is so good because again, like I mentioned the Vivi Rebecca parallels, and so here you have like. Both of them had someone they wanted to be with. Vivi wanted to be with the Straw Hats, and Rebecca wanted to be with Kairos. And so you really have the differences between their characters because Vivi also wanted to be with her country, so she decided to live with her country. Whereas Rebecca doesn't care about Dressrosa. She just wants to be with her dad. So Luffy, Luffy respects Vivi's choice to stay with the country, and Luffy helps Rebecca to be with who she really wants to be with. And I guess good.
That's also maybe that's a point of comparison some people might kind of make in their heads is like, oh, Vivi was like a you could argue that like she basically was a Straw Hat for a period of time, like when they were. Not quite, but like, she was there. She's kind of like an honorary Straw Hat, whereas Rebecca's like nowhere near that. Yeah. Like that wasn't even a concern for her. Like her father was her main thing.
Because as I understand it, people just call her like a rip-off Vivi or a knockoff Vivi, which is like, she's the opposite of Vivi, but like I don't know, rip-off or knockoff implies like people think she's supposed to be the same when she's not.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, like, yes, I like Vivi more, but also like Rebecca's not the same character.
Not at all. No, not at all. Like again, there's just too many deliberately like opposite things that happen. Like, So anyway, but yeah, Luffy runs. A bunch of Marines passed out because of the Tontas draining too much vitality out of them, but Rebecca, she goes to her dad, and she's the daughter of Kairos, and they hold hands without like I don't even think Kairos has gloves, but he's finally willing to like go, she accepts the impurities in him.
Oh, that's
so to speak.
right. I forgot about that. That's good.
Yes, I'm just double checking to make sure they were actually holding hands, because yes, they are holding hands, and she says, "Oh," and she asks, "Is my hand warm?" And she's like, "Yes, it's very warm." Oh, just a nice payoff to the man who was forced to be a toy for so long. God, it's good. Like I said, Kairos is I mean, maybe he's like, because there's also like Doflamingo's great and Bartolome is great, but Kairos might be a number 3. Like and I'm just realizing, because I was talking about how he like was trying to hide his weakness before, but here when she decides she wants to be with him, he's crying in front of her. He's not hiding that weakness anymore. They're so good. Like it's
well, I don't know. He still tries to hide it, because when she's like, "Are you crying?" He's like, "No, I'm not."
Oh, you're right. He's such a baby. Oh man, you're right. That's a good point. But anyway, so yeah, everyone's running again. They got the alliance with them. We kind of already talked about the Law Sengoku conversation, like, where, Law thought that Corazon wanted him to defeat Doflamingo, but that was it. Sengoku had a better idea of who he was because he'd been with him longer. And they both sort of get closure on that man they both happen to know. Like, I think Sengoku even thinks, like, to think the one who carries on the will of, Rocinante the Marine was a pirate. But like, he just wanted you to live free. So, it's good. So anyway, then we get a bit of a moment between Luffy and Fujitora. What did you think about their brief fight?
It was interesting, more of like to hint at things to come, because like before this, like the Straw Hats normally get away through some sort of circumstance. Like there hasn't been much of a confrontation with like the big threats. So in this instance, they're like, okay, it's time to go, and you expect like, oh, there's going to be all the shenanigans that they get around the Navy and they escape scot-free by just barely once again. But no, this time Luffy's like, hey, we're not going to run away. We can't keep doing that because, we're going after an emperor. So I think it's time that we got to take these threats down eventually. So why not start now? And he goes to fight Fujitora. But I mean, obviously the fight gets broken up and they get rid of him. They kind of force Luffy out of there. But
it's like him directly responding to the Sabori shit, where it's like he saw this admiral and he ran from Sentamar and Pacifista before Kizaru even showed up. But still, it's like, he's real. He needs to fight. And he's gonna try. He wanted to try and beat Fujitora because like he's gonna have to surpass everyone. So if he runs from the fight, he needs to do eventually. Like like he's stronger now. He has his gears. So it's like. Yeah, I don't know if he would have won or not. Maybe. I mean, he's got the whole alliance there, but they're all kind of like... But there's also Sengoku and Tsuru. I don't know. Too many factors, but...
I'm trying to think, what was because the relationship that kind of develops here between Fujitora and Luffy is... Who is it? Garp had a... It's Garp and somebody. Like, Garp and... it was Garp and Roger that had kind of like a respect despite a respectful conflict. Like they had to do their jobs, but at the same time they respected each other, and we kind of get some of that here with Luffy and Fujitora. Like Luffy, I don't know, Fujitora's like, oh, you're disrespecting me, calling out your attacks just because I'm blind. Do you think that this is a handicap or whatever? But Luffy, I forget exactly what he says to him, but then Fujitora's like, oh, you know what, this kid might actually not that he not so bad, because like he's a pirate who, it's his job to go after pirates, so Luffy's still a threat, but he has kind of a respect for him now.
Well, it's like Luffy earns it like through the fighting, like, well, because like Luffy's like calling out his attack, like, I'm gonna punch you, oh, now I'm gonna kick you, and Fujitora gets pissed off, like, what, are you pitying me? And like Luffy's like, no, I don't think you're that bad a guy, and like Fujitora laughs, and I think he even says something like, I have a standing to uphold. There's no room for sympathy and likes and dislikes, but, like, he can't help but like Luffy, because Luffy's such a goof. Luffy's decision to fight kind of gets rewarded when, he drops all the rubble on the Doflamingo allies who are coming in, so that was nice.
Yeah, that was interesting, because, like, there was the way this whole escape was handled was pretty neat, because at first, like, Fujitora, again, with that kind of flip-flopping motives or, motivations, like, oh, he's gonna, even though they're escaping, he's gonna drop the rubble on them, but then the Dressrosa people go out, and they're like, oh, we're gonna get Straw Hat ourselves, but really it's just a distraction to make sure that Fujitora doesn't drop the rubble on the Straw Hat.
Yes.
And so he's like, okay, I'm not going to do that then, because it'll hurt my image. But also there's like a bit of an ulterior motive, like, yeah, Luffy, okay, you managed to escape.
I'm curious about his backstory, because he said like he cut out his eyes himself because he saw too many things he didn't care for, but now he's kind of regretting that. Was that exactly
how it was phrased? I know they said like it was kind of like I thought he said it was in like a battle or something, that like he earned these blind eyes. But also, like, it was by choice. I don't know.
No, he said, he earned his lack of sight by my action. I shut these lids on my own. Saw too many things I didn't care for. So, he did that. He cut out his own eyes. Or blinded himself, basically. So, he saw some shit, apparently, that he didn't like. But now he wants to see Luffy's face. So, but yeah, it's great. Like, yeah, Fujitora is, like, yeah, because, I don't know, that's the thing with the Marines, because I've seen people have this, like, with Aokiji, Kuzan, sort of, similar, like, flip-flopping, but, I don't know, I think it's interesting, so. Anyway, I think we got one or two major things, and one of those things is the Straw Hat Alliance, which I think is great. All these guys are like, we're gonna be under you. And Luffy's like, no. Such an idiot.
It would cramp my style. Well, yeah, I do like that though, because Luffy's all about freedom, and so if he had this giant fleet of like 5,600 people at his beck and call, then he would kind of be shackled to them, and he doesn't want that.
And vice versa, like he doesn't want them, like, yeah. He even says, like, why not just, like, if you need me, I'll help you. If you, I won't forget that we fought together. And, like, well, see, and what's great about it is, like, their reaction, because, like, Luffy's all about freedom, so they decide to, of their own, like, mutual desires for freedom, they're like, okay, we've decided that you're going to be our boss. Like, Luffy doesn't even get to drink the alcohol, because he's like, yeah, what are you guys doing? Like, it's just such a Luffy way to form an alliance. Like, because he would never, like, yeah, he would never take subordinates under him, like, normally like this, but so they force it, because that is, and I also love when they're drinking the cups, Leo's got this, like, to him, it's like this giant sake cup, whereas the giant, he's, like, holding it with two of his fingers, like, don't swallow it, dude, because it's funny, but it's just a good moment.
I also like how Zoro just ended up, I think, drinking Luffy's, because he's like, he's never gonna agree to something like this. You might as well just give it to me. And then I think he just took it anyway.
He just likes booze. And Luffy's like, hey, where'd it go? I didn't even drink any. And Zoro's just, like, wiping his mouth with the smile. Oh, he's such a dork. Oh yeah, and then after they have their victory party, which is always so good. And I think especially, like, one of my favorite, like, little bits is in, like, one of the panels, like, you see Zoro has his arm around Law, like he's dragging him into the party, and Law's just like, no, I'm too edgy for this.
I must have missed that one. I'll have to go back and look for it.
So, Law's just, I love Law's interactions with the Straw Hats. It's so perfect. He's just like, no, and they're like, yes. So anyway, final thoughts on that, because there's one more chapter to cover.
Yeah, there's some new bounties.
Yes. Well, before that, we see Mr. Lucci's Spandam's boss now. Apparently, like, that seems to be how they're, like, acting, because Spandam even says, like, Or like it's like Lucci's like, they're an obnoxious bunch, and Spandam's like, yeah, you're right, and Lucci's like, just like you.
Oh, that was
like,
Spandam. I didn't even recognize him.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, the mask gives it away. So yeah, well, because it's white instead of black, so yeah, I understand.
I guess I just wasn't paying enough attention to the background character. I was just like, oh, this is just some fodder filler person, right?
Well, it is, but so yeah, so basically somehow in between the cover story and over the time skip, Lucci and returned, and now he's part of Cypherpole 9 or Cypherpole 0 with Spandam. So yeah, that happened. Dressrosa is peaceful. They're built like they build. I like how they build statues for Luffy or Lucy and God Usopp. Fairies are now like kind of existing in the open. Like there's a bit where Rebecca and Manchuri are shopping. They're just cute princesses. And then we cut to Doflamingo's naval escort, where we kind of talked about this already, where he's like, he was holding the reins to all the monsters, and we get the page of all the emperors and the worst generation. He's fucking hype. Okay, he's like, just give me a newspaper. He just wants to see everything unfold now that his defeat has caused all these dominoes. Oh, and as far as like potential for Doflamingo coming back to the story, Jack, there's a pirate called Jack who's got, it looks like he's got Kaido's flag on his ship, and he's he's like, we can't stop, these men are like, we can't stop them, and he's like, who do you think I am?
And I was like, who are you? Mysterious Captain Jack.
Well, did see he was named back on Punk Hazard, back with when there was the video footage of the smiley stuff. There was like some guys who were like, we need to go tell Jack. So he's had this character in mind for a while. God, that was over 100 chapters ago. For Dressrosa is so fucking long. So yeah. Oh yeah, so we found out about the Vivre card. Luffy has a Vivre card now that all his alliance and Bellamy has. And Sabo too. And yeah, we get to see all the bounties. Luffy and Law are at 500 each. Zoro I think he had the biggest increase because he went from 120 to 320. Everyone else got got Usopp. He's no longer, like, he's now being recognized, like, because I kind of accidentally spoiled it a while ago. I tried not to, because I said, oh, Doflamingo recognizes him as God Usopp, but now the Marines do, because that was, like, his big character moment. He's being recognized for him, and not under the mask of his lies. Like, so, he disowned his lie to the Tontas and fought on his own, and, he got beat, but he saved everyone, so... And now he's got the third highest bounty in the crew. It's above Sanji's. This little shit. And that's so good. But yeah, poor Chopper's only at 100.
Yeah, Chopper still doesn't have anything.
Yep. And then, mysteriously, Sanji's wanted poster says, only alive. Not dead or alive. Only alive. That's very mysterious, but we are done for this set of chapters. So yeah, we already kind of talked about our overall opinions on the arc. You were kind of disappointed, though you did actually like the arc, despite my me not thinking so. I thought, oh no, he hates it, or she hates it. And yeah, I did really like it. Like, I'm not sure if it's in my top 5 or not, and there's still like one major arc to come that I know for a fact is in my in my top 5. But Dressrosa's, I think it's really good. I think it's interesting. I have a lot to talk about if I do a video on it, because, like, again, it is kind of contentious, so I definitely want to do it justice. I mean, maybe someone else has already done some videos, like, I know, because someone asked about Mr. Morge. He did a video on Dressrosa, mostly talking about Doflamingo. I have not seen that video yet. I did hear some conversation, so if I said points that he talked about, like, I haven't seen, he also did one on fights, where apparently he mentioned the Doflamingo fight. I also have not watched that one. So if I had some points that were similar to what his saying, we're just noticing the same things, I guess. Because I didn't even see conversation around the fight one. I saw a little bit about the Doflamingo one, but I haven't seen it, so I can't say much. But no, Mathwiz, sorry, you can't watch these videos yet. But yeah, next time we are reading chapters 802 to 856. We are almost done. This will be our second to last episode of One Piece, of the current discussion. Like I said, we will eventually come back to the ongoing arc when it ends. Like, if it's going to be 50 chapters, if it's going to be 100 chapters, when it ends. So yeah, Thank you. Go ahead and vote on the poll. Heaven or hell? Let's rock, apparently. Thank you and see you next time.